Welcome back, adoring listeners. This is Jay here, and welcome back to our OverMangaCast. That time we woke up in a podcast and had to explain manga. Our heated adventures overanalyzing manga we find interesting. On this episode, we read Franken Fran, Volumes 1 and 2, written by Katsuhisa Kigitsu.
Hello everyone and welcome to the OverMangaCast. My name is Sam. As always, here at the top of the show, we talk about what our familiarity with the franchise we read this week is. Franken Fran is one of those things where it comes up every October, and it came up particularly when it was like first coming out and, you know, had its initial surge in popularity. And it looked like one of those things where I wasn't sure if I would like it. Like, it seemed to hit some of my horror buttons, like body horror and weird X-Files stuff. But, like, I just wasn't sure, and so I never really sought it out. And, well, now here we are. Seen a lot of the reaction images, though. Very funny. How about you, Jacob?
Honestly, I don't know if I've ever even heard of Franken Fran before it was mentioned in passing on another episode of this show. Like, I might have heard the name before, but I don't actually recall hearing about it. You know, this is my first meaningful exposure to it.
How about you, Matt?
Okay, so I absolutely adored Franken Fran when I read it in high school. It was one of those books that I noticed in a Barnes & Noble. I then read the entirety of in the Barnes & Noble because I was much too embarrassed to buy it based on the fact its cover is very sexy. Go Google what Franken Fran's covers look like. They are gratuitous to a degree. I used to have the opinion that I thought they were completely ill-fitted for the series, but on this reread, I've actually noticed that the inside of the book jacket on the digital version is much clearer to see. It's actually like part of the series is like, ooh, yeah, look at this real sexy image. And then when you open up to the inside page, it does a weird body horror version of what was on the front page. And I'm like, that's very Franken Fran. It's like, oh, hey, yeah, get sucked into with this. Nope, this isn't actually sexy. Like, so it makes sense, but that does not change the fact that a younger me was too embarrassed to buy this at a bookstore. So I wish I had bought the physical version, because if you look on Amazon, they are going for $250.
Big oof. And Jay.
Yeah, so I, like Matt, also read Franken Fran in high school, and I'm a big fan. I love it. It's the best. Anyone else who disagrees can fight me. The end.
Well, I don't think there will be a bloodbath this episode.
It's the Franken Fran episode. It's a bloodbath by default.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. Scrap with Jay in the comments when this goes up on YouTube. One of the things that I actually really appreciated about this is that it is an anthology series, and I'm a huge fan of the Twilight Zone. So I really like anthology horror.
This has a strong, like, Twilight Zone, almost a little bit of X-Files, too, in that, like, each of these chapters could basically be called, like, a medical case, because they're all structured in pretty much the same way of someone comes to Fran with a problem, she solves it with surgery, the conclusion happens.
Most of the time, it doesn't end the way that the person wanted or expected.
Yeah, Fran has really big, genie energy to her.
Yeah.
And it's not even malicious. And I think that makes me like it even more.
Well, because as we get established in the first chapter, before the case actually gets involved, Fran, the titular character, is the, quotation marks here, daughter of a famous doctor, Dr.
Madaraki.
Yep, Dr. Madaraki, who's like a famous doctor that people come from all the world to, like, be...
Well, famous or infamous?
Both.
Yes. The answer is yes.
And she is a Frankenstein monster, pretty obviously, because she's got the stitches, and also because when she performs surgery, she can attach 2 extra arms. So
2 extra sets of arms.
Whatever's
right.
appropriate.
She becomes an arachnid. She has 8 limbs.
Yeah.
Well, I think the maximum we've seen is 8 total arms, so even more so.
Yeah.
That's a squid at that point. Hey, I need more hands for this. Like, what do you want?
Well, I'm getting off base with my original point. Was I think a lot of what she's doing is the first case, she's very excited to this person who wanted the doctor's help. She's like, no, I'm just as capable. I can do it, please. And like, I think all of her help comes from an earnest place of like, I think I can do this, and then not really having the wisdom to realize, no, I cannot. Because a lot of her problems, she comes away from thinking she solved completely.
Well, I mean, that's part of the horror of it, though, is
Yeah,
Exactly.
she does solve the problem. Like, if you're thinking logically, yes, but she subtracts perhaps the morality of it or applies her own version of morality to it that doesn't align with the greater humanity side of it. It works, right?
Usually it's the consequences she doesn't think of, but the thing that's even further is that most of the time the people that come to her asking for help don't think about the consequences either. And in a lot of cases, people are like, the bad things that happen to people, with a couple of exceptions, the bad things that happen to people is because they're not thinking about what they're asking for. And Fran just does the thing that she's asked. This is exactly what I was asked. I must have solved the problem.
Yeah.
There are also a couple of occasions where I do get the impression that, like, when Fran, she is very sweet and she thinks the best of people. And while she does have her moments of full-on naivete, there are also cases where she shows that she's not exactly, like, she's not a complete airhead, because she can catch when someone is, like, has nefarious purposes. And there are a couple occasions where Fran very directly and intentionally pulls a monkey's paw wish on someone to punish them. It doesn't happen often, but there are a couple of cases where it's very on purpose.
I think the best way to describe Fran is that she has never read a Michael Crichton novel in her entire life and doesn't intend to.
Yeah.
She only asks if she can, not if she should.
The way I always describe Fran is she is an idealist and a romantic, not in the typical human way, because she really romanticizes like the beauty of what science can perform, while also being an actual romantic, because she's all about like, oh, you really love him? And also, it comes up very rarely in what we've read, but I think one chapter in particular, she has a side hobby of reading romance novels.
Yeah.
And this has all been a very good establishing the base of what we're working with as we get into the first chapter, which starts with a very rich man whose son tragically died in a car accident. And the famed Dr. Madaraki is the only person skilled enough in the art of medicine to even revive the dead. Dr. Madaraki isn't here, so he's got Fran.
He's not sure about at first if he can trust this girl, and then her eye falls out of her head, and then he's very sure he can't trust her.
She stands up with this with like, it's the classic fist clenched, determined expression. You've seen it in every shonen anime expression. Like, entrust this important task to me. I can do it. Except her eyeballs are literally falling out of her head.
Yeah.
And pointing down into the cup of tea.
I hate it when that happens.
That dang eyeball. The rich guy and his secretary, assistant, I don't know. They run screaming because, of course, and they meet the rest of the Cronenberg horrors that live in Chateau de Madaraki.
A handsome guy's head pops out from around a corner telling them, no, don't be worried. Fran is actually quite skilled, except his head is way lower than it should be. And then the rest of his cat body walks out. It's a human head on a cat body.
Look, when I said I was into cat boys, this isn't what I meant.
The best part is Okita, which is the character's name, is normally the voice of reason.
I love Okita so much. He's just like, Fran, you being crazy.
But also, I'm a cat, so I don't care. He has a human head, but
He has cat personality traits.
Yeah. And then we don't know if, was he originally a human who had a cat body and is obviously over the years assumed more cat-like traits? Or is it the other way around? And was he actually cat?
Was he a cat given a human brain?
Considering what we've seen of Fran's other creations, I guess. Because everyone who's not Okita looks like they came out of a BDSM monster fetishist school. Like,
wow, way to expose your reading habits, Matt.
Okay,
like the butler with the bloodhound head.
Oh, yeah. He's actually pretty normal.
He's actually the most normal person in the series.
He really did be.
Dog Butler is actually way more normal than Okita, actually. The other ones are what I'm referring to, because there's a lot of people who are just in various states of like leather suits and zippers. Lots of zippers and belts.
Oh, yeah. Now I know what you're getting.
Well, I mean, we've already uncovered that her favorite pastime is reading romance novels, so it makes sense.
No, this novel predates 50 Shades of Grey, so the romance genre had a different tilt back then.
Had a different inclination, but hey, maybe this is the inspiration.
I don't know if you've read 50 Shades of Grey, Jacob, but I'm just assuming there's not a lot of like reconstructing people into ungodly crimes against nature. Maybe if there was, I would read it. Like,
maybe if there was, it'd be actually interesting.
Why was David Cronenberg not involved in the 50 Shades of Grey movie? That's what I want to know.
I really Cronenberg this one up, Morty.
This is my playroom. It's where I keep these horrible monsters.
Anyway, we cut to Rich Dude back at his house considering his options, and we learned that the accident that killed his son was no accident, because Rich Dude's father bequeathed the family fortune to Rich Dude's son, aka Dad's grandson.
He's kind of salty about it because his father obviously purposely skipped him.
He's real salty about it, salty enough to have his son murdered. But the heat of the police investigation is going to be too much. Or I don't think there's even like a police investigation. He just wants to cover his tracks.
Well, so, no. He needs his son back to get the fortune, because what he wants.
There's a clause, yeah.
What he wants is, he doesn't think Fran can do this. He's just saying, if you can get me something with a pulse, we can say he's in a coma, and then I get the fortune because he's still alive.
Right.
Because otherwise it goes to charity.
Yeah. But unfortunately, he gave Fran the job. So she busts into his office going like, I figured out how to do this. We're doing this now. What's going on?
What do you mean? What do you mean you know how to do this? What is this going to involve? Wait, why do you have that syringe? No, get away from me!
I need local anesthesia. Don't worry, you're his father. I'm sure you'd do anything for him. I never said that!
All right, and I've got him anesthetized. Let's go. And she pulls his brain and spinal cord out.
I just felt like shivers because I'm like, this is a local anesthetic.
Franken Fran has a very loose definition of what an anesthetic can do, and I'm not sure if that's in universe or not.
Me neither.
I could see Fran just not caring.
One of the things that swiftly becomes apparent in this manga is that the mangaka clearly learned how to draw human anatomy and musculature really, really well, and is super proud of it.
And it's flexing.
You might even say that Franken Fran is the equal and opposite of Baki.
The amount of times Fran performs a procedure and you're like, oh, I know probably what you do with that. And then she proceeds to cut a person's skull in half and you're like, that seems like you didn't need to do that.
That seems slightly excessive, but let's see where it goes.
How dare you? How dare you second guess Fran? She knows what she's doing.
You're right. Technically, I have just as many medical degrees as she does, which is 0.
Which constantly comes up. You're not a doctor.
To be fair, pretty much everyone she operates on is technically alive by the end.
Yeah.
I do gotta say, big props to Fran in that she does very often give very thorough disclaimers.
Yeah,
that's the other thing.
She'll spend an entire page going, okay, I'm not a doctor. This is highly experimental. Do you understand?
Yeah.
This could go very badly. Are you still willing to go through with it? And then they never think about the consequences, just like Fran.
She needs to establish her genie powers at the beginning. Like, once you have admitted to this bargain.
Well, I mean, to preface this, it's for a lot of cases they have sought others, and either the others ethically wouldn't do it, or it's too expensive,
or they don't have the time.
Or they don't have the time. So it's like they could have consulted an actual qualified professional. Some of them actually did try that.
To be fair, though, there are at least a few of them which just straight up don't think about it, and it's like, yes, just do it without thinking about it. And it's like those tend to be the ones who have the fewest moral scruples and end up the worst, like in this particular case.
Yeah, because we cut from the middle of the surgery to the rich guy waking up in bed,
Head swathed in bandages.
Yep, and it is unwrapped to reveal that Fran has attached his dead son's brain to the back of his head, because she gives a little bit of like medical
explanation.
It's technobabble is what it really is, but like it's just enough to keep the illusion that this is still possible.
It maintains suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she does preface before she even conducts their procedure that, you know, he's asking me to revive his son, and
which is
she even
impossible.
says it's impossible. Like, just flat out. But I can certainly mimic life.
You can bring a dead body back to life, but a human life is more complicated than the machinery of the body.
Yeah. And what she essentially has done is his son's head has been attached to the back of his head, and she medical jargons away, I have connected your brains together so yours is acting like a generator to his, and like it is being kept alive by your thoughts of him, and those memories of him are going into his brain, and that is maintaining
and activating the neurons,
which is the closest semblance to him coming back as he was in life, which would really be probably what a grieving father would want in like the most he could do in this situation. Unfortunately, this is a person who murdered his son, and the backside of his head knows that he murdered him and is going like, I'll never be away from you again, father, so you can never forget you killed me.
It's literally like living with your guilt personified forever.
Yeah. It is like the single most literal version of Telltale Heart you could possibly imagine.
Mm-hmm. And with Fran sitting on the balcony of the mansion, sipping some tea and imagining wistfully, oh, what a beautiful and loving reunion it must be.
Yep.
And that establishes the formula. Fran walks into problem, solves problem with Cronenberg powers. We see the horrible twisted consequences of the solution, and then it's Fran just wistfully
imagining things are perfectly fine, which on occasions they are. Most of the time they're not.
It's because she has the romanticized version, like in this carries over to other episodes, other chapters, obviously, of, you know, father and son relationship. They obviously love each other so much. Not realizing the nuance here is, well, obviously he caused the misfortune that has befallen them.
And there's another layer to it, because like Fran, and like this is something that's pretty consistent, because like even when Fran is presented with like maybe things aren't quite as they seem, because there are a couple of cases where I forget the cat guy's name.
Okita.
Okita. There are cases where Okita is like, something about this is kind of shifty. Are you sure you want to do that? And it's like, she assumes the best of everyone. And to be fair, like she had no reason to think this, but it never occurs to her that like, you know, the dad killed the son or anything. Like she just assumes that he's going to these lengths entirely for the sake of, you know, his son. She just assumes the best of everyone.
Because why would you think that a parent would be so callous as to murder their child?
Yeah, Fran is a romantic idealist, is really she's not always that, but that's what you get with an anthology series, is sometimes characters have to be slightly different to get the plot of the week together. But
I think the thing about it is that Fran is usually presented as naive, but I think that it's less that she is like dipping out of character for a story, more as she isn't as naive. She just chooses to believe in people in spite of evidence in some cases.
She is almost psychotically optimistic.
Yeah.
Almost psychotic. Almost.
She is a little psychotic, which I'll ascribe to the fact that Fran has a morality, that does not exactly match up with human morality.
Yeah.
Well, we have to remember that Fran herself is not human.
Yeah, she's not.
Yes. So, I mean, yeah.
Technically, yeah, sure.
Yeah, she definitely has human components, yes.
She's made of humans. But yeah, so we cut to the next case where a girl is being confessed to in an abandoned building by a kind of nerdy looking guy, Tajima?
Tajima is his name, yeah.
But she is rejecting him pretty harshly, essentially saying, "You creep, you took me out to this abandoned place for this? Ew, don't you understand how far out of my league you are?" Jeez. No, other way around. How far out of my league you are.
Your league.
I said the same sentence again.
Of your league, I am.
Anyway, she's not paying attention, so she walks into the road and gets isekai'd by Truck-kun.
Yeah, lots of people get hit by trucks in this, which in all fairness, that is the #1 killer of people in Japan, I think, actually, so fair.
It's always Fran's pharmaceutical truck. It always is.
Yeah, what happens is Fran arrives at this crime scene very quickly, to the point that the girl's brain has not fully died yet, like, because the problem with the first case, when she was like, I can't revive him, he's been dead too long, that's not a thing that can happen. This time she's like, yeah, we could probably save her. And then also says like, oh, she got hit by a truck. Oh no, I did have a delivery of medical parts. Yeah, let's just solve this problem before you start asking some questions. We might be lockable.
Yeah, she is very litigious.
But Fran asks Tajima, do you truly love her? And he says, yes. And she says, okay, what I'm going to do to save her life, it's going to change her. She's not going to look the way that you remember. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to deal with that? And he's like, yes, I am. It's like, for one, he's not family. He is not her family, so he can't really sign off on this, but whatever. And Fran's like, okay, this seems like his sweet, pure love. I'm going to do my best to preserve this. Let's begin the procedure. And she turns the girl into a caterpillar.
A giant, like,
squirmy caterpillar
with body proportional to the human head.
Literally with just her face on it.
Just her head, yeah. And of course the girl wakes up and flips the out, because who wouldn't? But we see over time, given an opportunity to adjust to her new conditions, she's not exactly happy, but she's alive. So she is willing to put up with it. And she actually apologizes for flipping out on Tajima
because he visits her every day.
Yeah, because Tajima puts his money where his mouth is when Fran says, do you truly love this girl? He is not scared away from the fact she is a caterpillar now.
Yeah.
And it's like he has the very fair reaction of being like shocked.
Find yourself a man who still loves you even after you're a caterpillar.
Look, if you can't love me when I'm a caterpillar, you don't deserve me at my best.
She asks him why he's so dedicated to her, and he says, oh, well, you probably don't even remember, but, look at me. I'm a fat nerd. I get bullied a lot in school, and I'm awful at physical activity. So I was pretending to be sick and hiding during sports day, but you found me and you berated me, but you told me that running away doesn't solve anything. And that actually gave me the confidence to go out and participate. And yeah, I was awful, but I didn't come in last. And I never would have found that strength if it weren't for you. And I've admired you ever since.
One of the other things, when she first wakes up, she does the thing that you expect of blaming Tajima and tearing into him. And it's like, look at what you did to me. But the fact that he keeps coming and, her asking why is a big character moment for her, because she was just doing that because she was on the sports club committee or something like that. Mm-hmm. She meant it. And she said it to him and it really changed him. And that's the reason why he cared about her so much. And it really touched her. Part of what, the whole, caterpillar body thing is you need physical therapy to be able to move with this body. He is there for her when she's doing that. And when she's on the verge of giving up because moving the body is so difficult because it's a giant freaking caterpillar body.
Yep.
Like, by the square cube law, it should actually collapse upon itself, but
Cronenberg powers.
this is Franken Fran.
Are you questioning Fran's bioengineering capabilities?
Yeah, right?
You know what? You're right.
There's a really nice montage of him getting her through her physical therapy, and like they grow really close over it until finally she's starting to burn up, and Fran's just like, oh well, looks like she's it's done well. Looks like she's beginning to metamorphosize as she spins a cocoon around her.
Yeah, and the girl's like, wait, I can get my original body back? And Fran goes, duh, I wasn't going to just leave you like this.
Yeah.
Which I loved. That was a great panel.
Yeah.
That's also a good panel to remind. I could totally see Fran going like, well, you're alive now, so I did my job. But also...
Yeah, so she spins the chrysalis around herself and is metamorphosizing back into her human form. And a few days later, the chrysalis cracks open and she emerges as a human.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Tajima says, all right, she doesn't really need me anymore. She's back to normal. I'm just going to go. She's like, no, you're not leaving. You're not running away again. You were here for me. You're going to stick around. And it's like an honest love.
It's really sweet.
It's a really sweet scene.
It was at this point where I'm like, hold on, this is ending too happily. And I looked at the page count and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and dear reader, you know what happened. And dear listener who didn't do the reading, shame on you.
Shame
on you.
This happy ending goes off, and we get Fran on her balcony, sipping her tea, going like, oh, those two young lovebirds, they went off to go enjoy their selves together. And then while sipping, she's talking to Akita and then just starts musing. You know, it's kind of weird. Insects are able to just completely change themselves over. It's weird. Metamorphosis happens for a few reasons, but normally it's for reproduction.
Yeah. And so those two go to sleep together, and we have the whammy panel, which happens a lot in these. And it's she might have been a caterpillar metamorphosizing into what you think would be a butterfly, but seems there was a bit of mantis DNA in there. She tears open his guts and devours him.
After mating, she consumes her mate for sustenance.
Yeah, I gotta say this
was the one I liked the least because it really fucked me up at the end.
Same. And in all honesty, the thing that I didn't like about it was that it was so mean-spirited, which is not in line with the rest of Franken Fran. Usually when bad things happen to people, it's because they were bad. And like, Tajima was always a good person, and I don't remember the girl's name, but she turned herself around. So the fact that they didn't really get rewarded in the end is not really in line with the rest of the series.
I mean, it's not mean-spirited. There's not like a beating down on him. It's more like this was instinct taking over because she is apologizing while doing it.
Yeah, and it's,
you know, so it's not so much mean-spirited as it is easily one of the darkest.
Yeah, Fran didn't think things through on her experimental procedure and was only having like a shower thought afterwards of like, did I mess up? Nah, it's probably fine.
Very much the case where this was definitely my least favorite because it was the little coda of it being sad at the end seemed unnecessary to me. But that said, it was still a shocking horror, twist. So it's like, not to say that it was bad. I just didn't like, it felt unnecessary to me personally.
Yeah, big agree.
I really appreciated the like sudden cannibalism out of nowhere.
The unfortunate thing is that technically Tajima would have had the greater likelihood of anticipating this. I mean, than some random other guy that she got with. Because, would you hook up with a bug girl knowing that she just metamorphosized?
He knew about the Cronenberg stuff. Yeah, I think the reason why it didn't sit as well with me as a lot of the other ones is the fact that there was such character development given to both of these characters. It seems unfair is what it is. And it's like, that's life sometimes. So again, not to say that, it's bad. It was just, this was very noticeably my least favorite because it was...
This one is a bit of a tonal shift because normally in Franken Fran cases there's something that makes the person feel deserving of their fate. I think though that's kind of the point of this chapter as well, though. That's why they do so much to build up the characters, is so that twist at the end is more like
Pain,
Fine.
more knife twisting.
like the point is the pain of it. Like that's what you get with a horror anthology is sometimes things are just there to hurt.
Yeah, sometimes things are just there to hurt you, which again is why it's like this works really well as a horror anthology chapter. That said, it was my least favorite because it, did.
I mean,
that.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So just remember, do not hook up with bug chicks. They might eat you.
I'm looking at you, specific section of the Hollow Knight fandom.
let's move on to the next case. Jeez.
Yeah. This one, I enjoyed this one because it shakes things up again, but this time in a more hopeful manner. It does a good job of establishing what I call the Franken Fran roller coaster of you have 2 chapters of like Twilight Zone, X-Files, really horrific twists and horrid endings. And then this one is kind of it's weird and it's gross and it's spooky, but it's ultimately kind of a happy ending. And then you have the chapter after this one, which I call Cyberpunk 2077, but we'll get to that one in a minute.
Yeah, so Franken Fran occasionally does chapters that are meant to like parody other genres. If those genres suddenly took a sharp turn into like body horror.
Yeah.
And this one is it introduces the character Detective Girl, who I'm sure has a name, but as someone who's
it's Kuho.
It's Kuho. I always call her Detective Girl because I recognize when this character shows up again when she does, and normally
Like awkwardly, she and Fran are like friends because Fran has a very interesting relationship with the police department.
Fran has a very interesting relationship with
Friends, I think, is maybe a little bit generous, but
like Detective Girl's a good character because when she shows up, oh cool, Franken Fran's gonna do a like police story. How are they gonna mess this up? It's never let's solve the crime.
I mean, the funny thing is, this is the one that is like the least messed up, which is saying something considering how it ends.
Yeah, because like. Well, we've gone a long way. What has happened is body parts are being discovered and they appear to be like severed and there's no like hide and hair and they've found like a lot of them at this point. So
they are dead convinced it's a serial killer.
Which fair, like that is the thing you would assume. So they go to Fran because she is an expert on dismemberment, to which Fran goes, "Why would you think that?" As she's dismembering like a room full of corpses.
The other thing is the point where they're like, okay, this is just straight up too weird for us. We need to call in the weird consultant. Is they kept finding a bunch of like they found a left leg, they found a right arm, they found another left leg. Oh God, there's at least 2 bodies here, and like they have a whole bunch of different body parts, and even the ones that are multiples of the same body part all are coming back with the same DNA.
Yeah, it's weird. Fran immediately notices like, yeah, these are actually all coming from the same thing. Like these parts were connected at parts because you can see
where the suture lines were.
You can see the right side of all these cuts. You can see healing. So these were cut off someone who's alive. And she's like, well, I better put these pieces together. And we cut back to like a few days later where Fran has put the pieces back together and it's some kind of weird flesh wheel. And she's like, I really don't understand what's going on here. This is beyond me.
It is the worst Humpty Dumpty you've ever seen.
It's a full page panel where you're like, man, you really are good at body horror. I get that, but
it never calms down from that point. By the by,
it's like, please, Kigitsu Sensei, you can stop flexing now. I'm going to vomit.
Well, he's not even done in this chapter. So.
Yeah,
exactly.
He's barely started in this chapter.
But so Fran and Detective Girl go on the hunt for who they assume is someone who's being held hostage and being cut up by a serial killer. I guess not a serial killer. It's a weird thing, whatever this is.
There isn't a name for this yet.
Like most times with Fran, the name for the crime she has committed has not been thought up yet. We'll get back to you.
We don't have a word for what this is.
We just know it's wrong.
Yep. But they come to a dilapidated home where they go in and it's run down, it's dusty, the furniture's destroyed. It looks like something out of Resident Evil. I love this panel because Detective Girl goes, "It's really creepy in here, isn't it?" And Fran is just idly thinking to herself, reminds me of home. It's like, yes, Chateau de Madaraki is exactly that kind of...
Chateau de Madaraki is a mansion from Resident Evil. I mean, like, let's be honest here.
I think the very important thing we need to point out is that every time the chateau is on panel, there is a lightning strike. Yeah. It is literally every time it's on panel. It's a comedy beat at this point. And I adore it.
As they're investigating this abandoned house, Detective Girl is too afraid to go through anything. And then Fran immediately finds the source of all these limbs. A woman with a very, very pronounced, I forget the exact
flesh mass.
Sarcomas.
Yeah, sarcoma. Which we get... I wish I knew more about medicine, because this seems like medical technobabble of normally you get like additional body parts growing. Like it's just like a weird, like
her stem cells are out of control, basically.
She goes into what stem cells are. Stem cells can turn into other kinds of cells, whereas most cells after you're born, most of the time, like each of your cells is a specific kind of cell. The cells in your body divide to maintain themselves. As a cell starts to die, a new one can replace it. And stem cells can be used if, a part of your body gets damaged and you need to replace parts. Like any number of your cells doesn't get the signal to stop multiplying, you get tumors. That's literally what tumors are. And in this case, it's a matter of stem cells just replicating out of control into these bizarre amalgamate body parts that just, refuse to stop appearing on this poor woman's body.
And she says that her parents didn't have the money to take her to the hospital, so they performed home surgery to cut them off. Her sarcomas grew at such an insane rate that her parents literally couldn't hack them off fast enough.
So they literally just up and left.
Yep.
Yeah. Her parents just didn't come home one day, and she's just been sitting there in this house, like randomly cutting off the body parts and dumping them in the woods.
Or in the street in some cases.
Yeah.
It honestly just sounds like such a freaking miserable existence. And Fran is like, wait, you're telling me you're infinitely regenerating viable human body parts? I'll never have a material shortage again. You're coming with me.
Yeah, because I think the thing Fran is constantly mentioning is she has run out of human corpses or spare parts. Yeah, just last chapter, she was getting a new shipment in. She is constantly at a loss for equipment.
It's also worth noting she refers to them as spare parts.
Yes.
Let's maintain the tone here.
Very often her operation fee is a truly exorbitant amount of money, and also whatever spare organs she can harvest.
I mean, to be fair, it is expensive committing crimes against nature, so it's fair.
Yeah. But anyway, so she takes the girl with her goon squad that are always following her.
I love the goon squad.
If you've ever seen the movie Repo Man, they look identical to the titular Repo Man in that. Like,
I was going to say they kind of look like the book burners from most film adaptations of Fahrenheit 451. Like they're walking around in giant, shiny, reflective, foil suits with little glass visors.
Yeah, like they've got like a strong, like bodybuilder hazmat suit kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so essentially, the detective girl isn't quite happy that the suspect is being taken away without her say so. But
to be fair, the suspect is also the victim. So
yeah, there's a lot going on there. But essentially, Fran takes her away, and she does a lot of surgery on her and is constantly ripping up parts. And we cut to I think a week later. Fran is I think visited by the detective girl, right?
Yeah, she's visited by the detective, and it's like, do you have any advancements on this case? And Fran is in a bit of a funk. She's real sad. She's like, yeah, I know what happened. It's such a tragedy. It's so sad. And
it's really unfortunate. I think Sam's doing a bit of disservice. The page definitely tries to play this up as sad as possible. Yeah. Fran is giving the bad news of a doctor. I'm sorry, we lost her. But then we flip to the page and she's completely cured of her illness. she can just be a normal person again, and I've lost my infinite source of body parts.
Yep. She's not regenerating anymore.
The pieces I hacked off stopped regenerating too.
Because there's like this horror panel of the victims swaddled in bandages with no limbs.
You get that, and then the detective shows up, and then Fran is all sad, and then turns to she's perfectly fine and completely healthy.
Yeah. She's perfectly fine. Thanking Fran for her efforts. It's like, doctor, you've saved me. You've given me the opportunity to live a normal life. I'm not going to spoil this blessing. Thank you so much. I'm going to go live a good life now. And Fran is just so sad.
Yeah, and it's a nice ending to a Fran case where the twist at the end is Fran didn't get what she wanted.
My favorite bit is Detective Girl has all the sarcomas like wrapped up in a giant mesh bag and is dragging them into the precinct. Like,
yep.
This is evidence for the case.
Chief, I figured it out. It's not a serial killer.
Yeah.
This is medical waste.
We find out later on that she's committed for that. But yeah.
The person to whom the horror thing happened ends up totally happy and fine. Fran is sad because she doesn't have her infinitely regenerating body parts. And poor Detective Girl, I mean, like, she seems like she walks in smiling with all these body parts, but like you can kind of see on her face that like, yeah, she did need some time off in a place that's, you know, quiet and safe for a while. Because she didn't come out of this perfectly happy too.
Yeah.
Pretty taxing being, you know, Fran's friend.
Friend is a real strong term there, Jay.
It's pretty taxing being on the same continent as Fran.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, next chapter, Fran goes to high school, and you're like, I didn't think she was a high schooler, and in all fairness, in the author's notes at the end of this volume, he does go, yeah, I originally thought maybe she could be a high school girl. I didn't think that worked out, so we don't do that again in the future, but for this chapter, she is.
It was funny because at the end of the chapter, Fran is like, yeah, I got bored of high school, which is echoed by the author saying, yeah, I did this one chapter. It was fun, but it got boring after the end of that chapter, so I just quit. So it's like...
Mm-hmm.
But for this chapter, Fran, in fact, there are even people who are like, hey, you haven't been to school in a while. What's that about? So it's like, oh, well, I've been busy. No, I'm at high school.
She already has a job.
There's a lot of reasons why Fran going to high school doesn't make sense, which doesn't feel fair to dwell on because the author admits it doesn't make sense. So
yeah, so we need to get down.
Fran admits it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
We need to get down to the character customization of Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah, because this entire chapter is essentially just one of the popular girls at school wants her eyelids done, I think is the procedure she wants.
She's got some sort of thing with her eyelids where like they hang down too far and they like shadow her eyes. So it's like, it's a really simple procedure. They just need to like fold my eyelids a little bit and stitch them in place like that. But it costs so much and my dad won't pay for it. And she's like, oh, hey, Fran, aren't you really, really good at science? Could you do this for me?
I think it's even funnier. I think the line is, don't you do surgery as a hobby?
That's it. That's the line. I'm like, what?
Example one, why Fran doesn't make sense as a high school girl.
Yeah. Also, example number one of why all these high schoolers are fucking idiots. But you know what?
Yeah, because
high schoolers. That makes sense.
What happens is the girl and her like popular girlfriends and Fran go into the science classroom. It might even be during the school day, I think.
And the girl's like, you got everything you need here. You've got drugs, you've got anesthetic, you've got needles. And Fran's like, oh, I use my own stuff. Don't worry.
I take that with me wherever I go. Yep. Proceeds to do surgery, and for cosmetic surgery, it goes off without a hitch. It's perfect. It's got none of the Franken Fran level of like, this is some ungodly crime against nature. This is just really a simple surgery that Fran could do in her sleep and just does it because Fran likes people liking her is a thing. Mm-hmm. Like,
she likes making people happy.
This is actually the rare case where it's like someone asks her something that's honestly not super unreasonable. Like, this is just a thing.
No, this is something that you could probably honestly, if you went to a plastic surgeon, they'd do in the office is what it sounds like. Cause it's like one stitch, done. Like,
Exactly. And so everyone is like, whoa, you got plastic surgery? I thought your parents wouldn't let you do it. Tell us, what's the secret? You know, the girl is like, I'll tell you the secret for 10,000 yen. And obviously someone paid for that because word gets around school that Fran will basically do pro bono cosmetic surgery because it's her hobby.
It starts off with all the girls, in all fairness.
It starts off with all the girls where it's like, can you do a surgery to like make my eyes bigger? And it's like, can you give me liposuction? And
I love that little cutaway there.
The liposuction is actually a pretty funny bit because it's very simple. It's like, you know, liposuction is really a last resort. Have you tried exercising? He's like, I don't want to. And Fran just, okay, I'll do the surgery then.
And then says, oh, see you later.
I gave you the bare minimum of my professional expertise.
You know, with any lifestyle changes, you're just going to be back, so...
Exactly. Yeah.
Considering Fran does that liposuction within a day, like, and then it gets out of control because you start getting people like coming in for, I want, like, can you attach abs to me?
Sure. Can you engrave my girlfriend's name on my teeth? Sure. Just don't eat sweets.
Oh, and there's a bunch of guys get like, one of them I think gets metal spikes implanted into his skull.
Yeah, they start looking like Fallout Raiders.
Yeah, and he's bragging to his friends about it. And we get this hilarious panel where it's one of the popular girls, like just a profile shot in the bottom of the left-hand page. And it's just like, you boys look ridiculous. And then we flip the page to find out she has gotten like triple G implants.
Her tits are the size of her entire torso.
Yeah, like...
Yeah.
How would anybody find something that exaggerated attractive? Like, come on.
Sam.
Sam, we're talking to the internet now.
Yeah. Right. God damn it.
But
I am so glad I'm a hermit.
Essentially, the rest of this chapter is literally just the cosmic surgery getting blown out of control.
One of my favorite lines out of this is Fran saying, I'm finally starting to feel like I fit in here because all of the school now look as freakish as she does.
Cyberpunk 2077 is a really fitting comparison because the people are starting to look like character customization horror shows.
It's the classic Franken Fran Cronenberg insanity with a bit of transhumanism dashed in for flavor, and I love it.
It's really interesting. We've only been talking about what's happening in the background because I think, honestly, in this chapter, the main plot's just not as interesting. But
yeah, because there is an emotional hook for this chapter.
What it essentially is a boy and girl have been...
They're dating.
Kind of, yeah. Like... Yeah.
They're trying to date.
They're childhood friends and have asked each other out, but clearly there's something going on there. To which, after like cosmetic surgery has gotten like real big around the school, the guy goes to Fran and essentially says, I hear you're giving out surgery. I've got a serious problem here. I want you to turn me into a woman because my girlfriend is afraid of men. Yeah,
she was sexually assaulted as a child and it left deep traumatic scars, and no amount of therapy she's going through is healing it. And I need you to do this for me. He doesn't even say that he wants gender reassignment surgery like on panel, or at least we don't see it. But Fran's like, are you sure about this?
Yeah, he's basically just saying, I will do whatever it takes.
Yeah, and she says, all right, it'll take me about a week of prep time, so come back in a week and I'll do it. The girl was like eavesdropping on this conversation, and she goes up to Fran like, hey, I've got a big favor to ask.
Oh, man, my favorite panel, which is them meeting under the tree.
Well, we see the boy going under the knife. Cut to the next panel of the two of them meeting under the tree. They both say, I got gender reassignment surgery.
We got a gift of the Magi situation here.
He's like, I got reassigned as a woman because you're terrified of men and I wanted to make you comfortable. And she said, I heard what you were going to do. And the fact that you would make such a sacrifice for me, I needed to go that far as well. And they're like, wait a minute. We both went under the knife at the same time. She literally just swapped our genitals, didn't she?
Yep.
I think the girl actually said I wanted that.
Yeah, the girl wanted that situation, so they have had their parts swapped with each other.
It's honestly really wholesome and cute. I love it.
It's a very sweet ending.
It's someone's kink.
which we get the ending panel, which is entire
Them making
cyberpunk
out.
they're making out, and the crowd of people around them who have been like full transhumanist like reassigned, like everyone's happy and like weird,
Being like, man, get a room.
oh man, I got plastic surgery so I could find a boyfriend. I should have just found a boyfriend before I got plastic surgery. And then we cut to Fran on our balcony going like, hey Fran, you going back to school? No, school's really exhausting. Well, what about all the people there? He's like, I don't know. They're mature. I'm sure they knew the consequences of their actions.
I'm sure they won't regret this long term, and we never see any of them ever again.
That's technically not true, but we'll talk about that later.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah, we learn the trans couple breaks up later, and I'm like, oh fuck.
Yeah, because this is a happy ending, and you're like, I don't think those belong in Franken Fran. And then it's not even the bonus chapters at the end; it's the backside of the book jacket. So it's literally the very last page of this is just a little sign of like, hey, what about those two who lovebirds? Oh, I heard they broke up. Oh. Then, it's one of Fran's classmates where talking about how, hey, you haven't been to school. Yeah, I kind of quit. Oh, what about those two? Oh, they broke up.
Look, I like me my happy ending, so I'm just gonna imagine that's a vicious rumor.
I mean, fair, because that's also the book jacket, and I don't think those are canon. So
yeah,
it's just a funny joke because
it's a really funny joke, but
like the joke is, hey, can we have happy endings in Franken Fran? Not really. Here we go.
It's very much a take it or leave it moment, and I'm gonna leave it because I think those two are adorable.
Oh man, this next chapter happens.
Yeah. So again, the Franken Fran roller coaster. We had the horrid chapters, we had the wholesome one, we had the weird one, and now it's time for more horror.
I really liked this one.
Why? Because it was deep and philosophical and involved things.
Or because it was about dogs.
Yeah.
Okay, it was deep and philosophical, and it involved dogs. What else do you want from literally anything?
Exactly. So
All right, then.
We're introduced to Dr. Amatsuka, who has recently made a Viscount in Britain. So it's like, okay, cool.
Cool.
Anyway, he's an old friend of Madaraki.
Uh-huh.
And they have an ongoing debate on the very existence of God.
Yes, because during World War II, they were in the Navy, and they were...
The Imperial Japanese Navy is important to...
Distinction there.
That's the important part. They both fought for Japan, and they're both like, yeah, at this point we're basically fucked. There's no way we can ever take on America in any way. We do not have anywhere near the resources to fight them. And that's Amatsuka's take. And Madaraki is like, yeah, but honestly, this war hasn't been about nations fighting nations. The level to which humanity's technology has advanced in both the direction of making the world better and in killing each other. This isn't a war of nation on nation. This is humanity going to kill God, which is a take I'm always happy to get behind. Amatsuka's like, well, I was really hoping Madaraki was here so we could continue our little debate, our little bet on the existence of God, but I guess he's not. So it was nice seeing you, Fran. I'm going home now.
Continuing the long running gag of how many people can we have not know where the doctor is, because Dr. Madaraki being not able to be reached is a running theme through Franken Fran, which, considering the length of time something's happened, this is a very long time for an 80-year-old man to be missing.
Yeah, not even Fran knows where he is. So like, I hope he comes back.
Over the course of our reading, several years have to happen because there are numerous medical files and experiments that take months.
Well, I suppose some of them could be happening simultaneously, technically, but it's still a pretty serious length of time, regardless.
Which, again, reason why Fran can't be in high school, just because some surgeries she'll literally say, "Yeah, this took me a month." Like, but also her compound's big enough. Realistically, things can be happening concurrently. So.
Yeah, she does mention having multiple labs, multiple surgery
theaters. Yeah. We know there's at least 5 labs.
Yeah, and in all fairness, in a lot of cases, what's happening is Fran is checking in on the progress of things. So you could make an argument that the Chrysalis case happens entirely off screen with Fran just coming in for office hours. Like, anything else could be happening while that's going on. Like,
We have a pretty substantial number of cases,
mhm.
and, at minimum, it's a couple of months worth of time, and not all of them can be happening concurrently, so...
But anyway, the main crux of this is as he's leaving, his secretary, Mrs. Tuppence, or Miss Tuppence, that's important.
After Dr. Amatsuka leaves, Fran is alerted by one of her numerous horrific creations, this weird little hedgehog-looking thing, that the laboratory has been bugged. There are listening devices all around. Fran does a bit of investigating, and she finds that there's a listening team in the woods nearby that are tuned into the bugs, and she unleashes her horrors upon them, and then we cut back to her inviting Dr. Amatsuka back to the house.
Yeah, continuing a running theme in Franken Fran of God help you if you wander into that forest. This is not a place for man.
I'm pretty sure not even God can help you at that point.
You know what? You're not wrong.
I mean, to be fair,
himself could not do anything to save you.
well, I mean, people who wander into the forest, it's the mixed bag you expect from Fran, but the people who go in intentionally usually deserve what they get.
Fran invites Dr. Amatsuka back, and he and Miss Tuppence show up.
Because she has claimed that she has solved their bet because she's been doing some research on the nature of God.
Yep.
Mhm.
And she says, the way that I see it, there's really only one animal that can truly see God, and that is dogs. Because the companionship between man and dog can be traced back basically to the beginning of humanity as we recognize it today. And dogs are these ultimately loyal beings that will stay by their human side. They will live and fight and die for the human that they are bonded with.
And moreover, wolves are not dogs, despite how genetically close they are. They became something else because early humans forged them into something else.
What animal could have a closer understanding of what God is than an animal that walks beside their God every day?
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Amatsuka's like, all right, that's an interesting philosophical point, but do you have an example? Well, actually, yes, I do. Because you see, I found some people in the woods and I turned them into dogs.
Fran, why would you do this?
I love how nonchalant she is too. Just like, yeah.
This is kind of the part where I'm like, Fran is very... She's psychotically positive. She always sees the best in everyone, but like she's not dumb, airheaded, or even really naive. Like she chooses to make naive decisions because she knew exactly who these people were and she knew exactly what she was doing to them. So this was a punishment.
Fran is nice to people because normally she doesn't feel they're a threat to her. And in all fairness, even to her, she doesn't care because she can rebuild herself for the most part. It's when people threaten the doctor, like because what these people were doing was trying to steal the doctor's research, and that is an unforgivable. Like there's a switch in Fran's head that goes, "Hey, you're messing with the doctor, kill."
Instant violence. And she says,
Well,
so
not,
I wonder.
not killer violence, Cronenberg punishment, which is worse.
Yeah, we'll get to Fran's opinion on killing in the last chapter.
Yeah, there's lots of fates worse than death in this manga. And she's like, I wonder who these dogs think their god is. And like the paneling makes it look like they're running towards Amatsuka. And it's like, oh, is he the one that bugged the lab? No, they go and surround Miss Tuppence. Fran's like, ooh, you should vet your help better, Dr. Amatsuka. Because Miss Tuppence was a spy for, I'm not sure which government, but a government.
They just say, they say foreign government is it.
Yeah.
A foreign government trying to steal Madaraki's research. And Amatsuka's like, that's a real shame. Anyway, I leave her to you. Wait, what do you mean you leave me to her? No, you can't do this to me. Get away from me.
She gets surgeried into a dog.
Yep. We have a truly horrific panel of her being stripped naked and strapped down to a surgery table, crying and screaming for mercy.
Yeah.
That does not come.
And Amatsuka says, yeah, real sorry about that. Hey, so you turned her into a dog. Are you going to care for her? And Fran says, care for her? No. And it shows, one of the horrific human dog things. And it's like, such a savage beast? No, I turned her and the rest of her pack loose in the woods. They'll make their own way, or they won't.
It's really great because...
By the way, what did you think of my answer? I give it about 70 points.
Yeah, that's my favorite line is because this entire philosophical debate she went off on about the nature of gods. Well, you see, dogs technically worship people as gods, so I've genetically engineered people into dogs. That's my thesis statement, to which he gives an almost failing grade.
Yep.
Well, I mean, the philosophical core of what she's saying is that we make our own gods. She's just doing it in a horrifying Cronenberg way.
Yeah.
It's not a convincing argument is the thing, which is a lot of what because Fran is very selectively intelligent on other things. That she thinks translates into everything is normally the problem with her conclusions a lot. She's very smart about biology and surgery and that. The problem is when she thinks that also goes into politics and human relations, and she is not universally intelligent, and that's normally the root of her problems.
Well, because she wasn't. It boils down to the fact that she was not socialized.
We needed to take her as a child. That was the problem.
The thing is, she was socialized. She was just socialized with other Cronenberg monsters, which is where her mindset comes from, which honestly makes a lot of sense. It is the most logical thing in this entire Cronenberg nightmare. I love it.
I just like that the Franken Fran moral lesson of the thing was rated a D by someone in universe, and I'm like, that's normally about what it deserves, because normally it's just...
Well, you have to think that Dr. Atsuka, obviously this debate was applicable to, humanity and the psychological debate that was going on in that context, not whatever Fran turned it into.
He's been thinking on this for at least 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's kind of that was backhanded and just Fran, that's not what I was talking about.
Yeah. I also think that Fran wasn't really trying to answer his question. She was
she was pissed.
She was just being theatrical.
Yeah.
She was being theatrical, but she did ask what her thesis statement did rate.
Because, as always, Fran is very excited to see how she measures up to the doctor. That's what this is she wanted to take a crack at the thing the doctor tried to prove. That's her motivation in this chapter is, I want to be like Dr. Madaraki.
I want to see how I measure up because I know I'm still an amateur compared to him. I'm trying to reach his level.
The next chapter is on a cruise ship, and I really appreciated this one. But I can understand if the rest of you didn't to the level I did.
I mean, I don't know exactly what you appreciated, so I would appreciate you elaborating on that point, because I did enjoy the chapter.
The entire setup for this case is literally a case closed mystery. This is a very famous one involving Kaito Kid, the murder on a cruise ship, up until the cannibalism.
Yeah.
But the setup for it is literally case closed.
I'm pretty sure I saw that episode of the Case Closed anime.
Yeah, so the joke of this is Fran is in a mystery manga, except the joke is Fran immediately solves the mystery because she's super good at surgery. It takes away the who did it question by Fran solves that immediately.
It's one of those ones where Franken Fran will do another genre, except Cronenberg horror seeps into it.
Well, I mean, isn't it Fran who immediately like points out what happened?
Yeah,
and then she's just like, well, we have to find, where's the rest of her? We need to find the evidence. Finds the evidence, and then says, okay, well, I'm gifted surgically, so I can just, get the information that we need.
Yeah, essentially what happens is they're there for a birthday party for a 16-year-old girl, I believe, because it's like a big party for the heiress to a natural food company, I think. And there's a big catering dishes and stuff, and they're offering food, and the guest of honor is nowhere to be seen, to which Fran notices the food on the table is human flesh. Just on eyesight, she notices that, which impressive.
The sashimi is people.
So she goes up to the head and just makes the announcement where if this was a mystery manga, she would be like, I've solved the case. But she's just like, hey, don't eat any of the food. I think there's been a murder.
The meat is people.
Yeah, this feast is actually an attempt to destroy the evidence, and everybody in the entire room starts vomiting.
Yeah, there's a...
That
Which
was
is an
my
appropriate
reaction.
response.
Yeah, because this party's been going on for a bit. Fran arrived late because Dr. Madaraki was invited. So Fran puts on a really nice dress, and Okita comes in his human suit,
Yeah,
which is
very dashing.
his human head sticking out of a human body, which we then reveal is just a...
The cat body is in the neck.
Yep. And essentially what it boils
They
down
both
to...
look good, like...
Yeah, and what it boils down to is Fran goes to where the food's prepared, and then opens the fridge to reveal the girl's severed head on a cake, because this was an elaborate suicide to get back at her father, because her father cared more about his job than her. And we get essentially when she blames the parents just do nothing but blame each other. They're not even like worried their daughter was killed.
Well, I mean, it's the issue is that like their parents, it's her father and then the stepmom.
And a stepmom.
Oh,
And the
right.
stepmom, you know, points out, you spent all this money on that brat and everything. It implies that she didn't really have like maternal feelings towards the girl and kind of resented the fact that he doted on her so much.
I think I might have misread this because I thought that it was some weird psychosis thing that the dad did, because Fran's talking about how like, yeah, the dad's kind of narcissistic and he really dotes on his daughter, and she talks about how you know, like the most precious thing a person has is their life, and if they equate their life with something else, destroying it is a form of suicide. So
yeah,
Whoa.
I didn't pull away that she actually committed suicide. Fran was connecting it to the fact.
I think I misread this chapter then.
Okay, so what happens is when she accuses the parents, that's when that happens. When the head gets on the body, she does actually say, "I killed myself."
Oh, right.
So it's basically all of the things that have been said are things that happen. It's just Fran, because it's like Fran does like solve this comedically fast, but she doesn't know right away what's going on. Like she immediately notices that the food is people. Don't eat the food. That's evidence.
she solves the physical crime really, really quickly. But as usual, Fran doesn't people super well, so she doesn't get the emotion behind it.
Yeah, and the big thing that ends up happening, and the reason why Fran figures out that despite what the parents are saying about each other, it definitely can't be either of them. They're like conversing all about this, and then Fran opens the fridge door and sees the head on the cake, and she's like, "Wait a second! If someone was trying to hide the evidence of a murder, they wouldn't do this. This is theater."
Hold up. Yeah, I just reread the page. So it is not a suicide in... She says it's a suicide, but then she describes you can define a suicide in many ways. Many methods of suicide are like a child breaking a toy or destroying something most precious to you. So he did kill his daughter and then had the food put on display. Mm-hmm. And then he admits to it in the next page. And when the daughter is brought back to life, she says, "I'm so sorry, Dad. I didn't know you were suffering this much," because it's been revealed he's going to lose the company. He's going to lose everything. So this was kind of like him hitting rock bottom. He didn't have the nerve to kill himself was what happened.
Yeah, he's going to lose the company. He's going to lose everything. And his daughter turned 16, and he thought that like that would mean she would like move on and become an adult and not be his anymore. And he couldn't stand losing the last thing, air quotes, that was his, air quotes.
Yeah.
So he was losing everything. She was the last thing he had, and he was like losing her as well.
Yeah.
So he destroyed it as an act of possession.
Yeah. And essentially what happens is they use Okita's like spare body to put the head on and reattach, and she basically says, "Father, I didn't know you were suffering so much," runs up and hugs him, does not realize she has Frankenstein's super strength and breaks his back. And that makes a lot more sense because that's the karmic justice right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Fran just casually says, "Oh, be careful. Your nervous system isn't calibrated yet." Ooh, okay, he's dead.
In all fairness, Fran is eating the food in the back of that.
The cake,
that had the head on it. Like,
Hey, the head juices didn't get on this side.
And she and Okita are walking home, and she's like, so Okita, you were really looking up that female cat, weren't you?
Well, they also set it up to be like he was hitting on the stepmom who was holding a cat. But then
Who was holding a cat, yeah.
But then it's revealed, no, he was totally into the cat. And I'm like, so he is just a cat with a human head. I don't
know. I don't know anymore. It's not important.
It's uncomfortable regardless of the circumstances, so...
And that's the point, because this is Franken Fran. I really liked this one as well, because more of that classic Twilight Zone formula, just extra picked up.
Yeah. But how was the cake? We never find out.
Yeah, we never found
Was
out
it
how the
moist?
cake was.
Fran, and I mean, it was probably extra moist with all those head juices. Oh man, this is getting marked explicit.
Yes, it is. Happy October, everybody. Anyway,
hey, if explicit things and are bothersome to you, can I recommend another one of the things? Just the thought that you're this far into the episode, need to find something else.
You knew we were reading Franken Fran. I feel like we don't need a disclaimer.
Anyway, who's ready for some domestic violence, which actually isn't. This one is another one that's really fucked up.
It's very covert domestic violence, but it's like I
liked this one. This one was very clever.
The twist.
Oh yeah.
This is one of my favorite Franken Fran cases. Like full stop. Like this is
same.
Yeah.
All right.
So we start on a guy stabbing a girl to death in a park, and Fran just meanders on by, sees this happening, and goes, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Anyway, have a nice night," and keeps walking.
You think I'm just gonna let you walk away?
Oh, did you want to talk? What? Well, you said I couldn't just walk away. So do you want to talk? Is that what you're about?
Yeah, he's holding her at knife
just
point.
tries to people.
Uh-huh. And
it goes spectacularly.
And so the guy gets into this big sob story of she and I were in love, but her parents wouldn't have any of it. So we were going to do this suicide pact together, but I can't bring myself to actually die, and I don't have her anymore.
That's why you always need a second when you commit Sudoku.
Sudoku. Yes.
So Fran's like, I mean, I could probably save her life. And he's like, you could? Yeah, you love her, right? I do. Okay. So her body is very messed up. So what I'm going to do is lobotomize a bit of her brain, stuff all of her other organs into her cranium, and now she's a living head. Oh, yeah, that little bit of lobotomization basically gave her the mind of a toddler, so just have fun with that.
Can I offer you a head in this trying time?
Dead ass, Fran holds out the head to him in one panel. Here you go.
Hold on, Fran, I think we're really skipping over the fact Fran does all this surgery within minutes. This is a 10-minute surgery in the middle of the park.
She does preface that there is a high risk of infection, so they should probably stay in touch.
She shoved the entire gastrointestinal system into the brain. This girl cuts out her neck now.
There's a very, very detailed diagram because Franken Fran.
Yeah. We get it. You're really good at drawing anatomy.
Yeah, gotta flex it.
The guy takes the girl's head home, brushes her hair, and he realizes that she's kind of depressed, but she can't exactly talk because she doesn't have vocal cords anymore.
She's a head.
She's a head.
He's feeding her soup.
So he goes back to Fran and is like, she seems really sad. And Fran's like, okay, so after using my big brain powers to communicate with her, she says that she is sad she can't move around anymore. So I'm going to surgically attach a hand so she just becomes something out of the Addams Family.
Yeah, she becomes
Cousinette.
No, not Cousinette. The Thing.
The Thing.
I just love, she's got those big old anime schoolgirl eyes and the cute haircut on top of horrible finger monstrosity.
Guess whose fault it was?
We don't know yet. We're not to the end of the story.
We have more scenes of hand girl clattering around, boyfriend being happy with her. He takes her back to the park where he murdered her, and he says, this is the place we first met, isn't it? And he's just standing there reminiscing. And he hears a noise, and some cats have wandered over and are sniffing at the head and meowing. And it's paneled in a way that makes it seem like the cat could potentially swipe, but the cat also doesn't seem obviously hostile. Until the next panel, where the guy whips out a police baton, brains the cat, picks up the girl, and says, "Get away from her, you beasts."
Yeah.
We are finding as this is progressing that this guy is maybe not all there.
Yeah, the tonal shift starts here, where you're convinced he's actually like a loving boyfriend that you believe the suicide pact at this point. And then he beats an animal to death.
And it's like right at about this time you realize we don't know what head girl's name is. Boyfriend has never said it. And you realize that about a page before he says, "I don't even know her name, do I?"
Right before the cat appears, he's like, "Wait a minute, I don't know her name." And what's really going on starts to dawn on you.
But anyway, head girl is off to Fran for a checkup, and boyfriend goes home, and he notices something under his bed.
Well, you missed the main part, though, is it's not a checkup. He's bringing her to Fran and essentially says, "I can't stand her just being a head anymore. She needs to be able to talk or anything." Like, he gets very upset with Fran and actually like assaults her. He pushes her to the ground.
"We can't express our emotions like this. I can't hold her properly."
And like Fran is really like apologetic of him. Like, she just got like pushed to the ground and he's like, "Oh no." And like, this is step 2 of him having like really violent tendencies. And Fran's just like, "I don't know. Love is blind, I guess." He probably just really cares about her because Fran wants to see the best in everyone and is a romantic idealist. Like, she's like, "Yeah, oh, young lovers who have to kill themselves because their parents, Romeo and Juliet, verbatim, I believe that blindly." Like,
yeah. She's very willingly ignoring the very obvious red flags at this point.
So anyway, Fran agrees to give the girl a body, and she's like, "Yeah, whatever, I'll send her back to you when she has the body ready."
"I don't have any human bodies. Anything, as long as I can hold her."
"Yeah, I'll figure something out." And boyfriend goes home and he's waiting for girlfriend to show back up, and he notices something under his bed, and he lifts up the bed, and it's a whole bunch of scratch marks in the floor of, "Help me, kill me, please, I'm suffering, I hate you."
Revenge, revenge, revenge.
Revenge.
"There is no God" is also one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, that's another really strong one. "There is no God." Dude says she wasn't supposed to remember anything. She's supposed to have the brain of a toddler. And we get a flashback from his perspective of their first meeting. It's not her turning to her lover that she's about to Romeo and Juliet with. It's her just kind of standing in the park, turning at a noise and looking very frightened.
Cut back to them in the room or him in the room, sorry, as you hear a noise coming. She didn't, just as he's realizing that means she didn't lose her memory, you hear, "Miss Fran sent me. The operation went smoothly."
"I've been waiting to get close to you like this.
"The day I got a body again." And we get a lovely shadowed image of her head on top of a horrible flesh monster, asking him to please open up the door.
Any of y'all played Carrion? Great game, by the way. Highly recommend. Super good Metroidvania. She looks like the Carrion monster.
"Now I can finally hold you close. Oh, how I've longed for this day."
Yep, cut to the next page where Okita is watching the news and seeing the report about this boy being found brutally murdered in his apartment.
Sure that I didn't have anything to do with that.
Anyway, that's the end of volume 1.
Yep. It's Fran taking a shower too, so she doesn't actually notice. And when Okita tries to talk to her about it, she's like, "Nah, I'm sure they're fine." Goes to relax on the balcony to let her hair dry. Like,
yep.
That balcony.
I love Fran.
Fran loves her balcony.
She's great.
This one's really good. Just because like you get the full like karmic justice on it, and also body horror monster getting revenge is always great too.
You get the entire gamut of the Franken Fran experience, and it's all top notch.
Yep, and also you don't even have the thing of like, well, there's a happy ending, because there's not. There's happy ending. Like,
karmic justice was done. It's a cathartic ending. It is not a happy one.
Yeah, this one really feels like the mangaka had a strong premise going into making this manga, but he wasn't sure exactly what he wanted to do with it. This is where he hit his stride.
Yeah, absolutely.
So at the end of the volume, we have a 0.5 chapter, which has a little half story of Fran being tricked into being in a porno.
It's pretty funny.
It's a snuff film. It's what it is.
Because essentially she gets called by someone who says they're a friend of the doctor, and he's it's the friend of the doctor, Dr. Amatsu. And he's got a
Amatsuka, yeah.
Yeah, he knows a movie producer who's very interested in Fran. And she's like, ooh, what kind of story does he want to do about me? Maybe it's a love story with the doctor. And I'm like, that's a little weird, but also...
she immediately goes there, and I'm just like, okay.
She's a romantic idealist, so it kind of makes sense, though. Like, she's got a fantasy of someone she admires. Like,
yeah.
But like,
what the relationship between Fran and the doctor is questionable.
I'm sure Fran builds it up too. Like,
I feel like it's definitely one-sided if it is that way.
It's 100% that, because he abandoned her for an untold number of years. Essentially what it is it's a snuff film where she is ripped apart by someone dressed as the doctor, like organs splattered everywhere.
Moaning about how it hurts so good. Please dismantle me to where no one could ever put me back together again.
Can't just read the panel.
And it's a really good panel. My favorite bit, though, is apparently she did a screening of this film without seeing it to her entire squad of monsters.
Uh-huh.
And during that scene, she turns around and stares at him as if it didn't occur to her during the filming what this was. It was after it was produced she realized what had happened.
Mm-hmm. Look, I buy it.
No, 100%.
Fran is someone who willingly ignores the obvious red flags of a situation because she doesn't want to think badly of people.
Look, all I'm saying is I participated in a few fandoms where 0.5 chapters fill you with dread, and this did not help.
It's just fun. And then it's implied she goes on a tour with like a film tour of the studio and has her squad kill the director. Like, because Fran's nice, but Fran will also get revenge.
Mm-hmm. So this takes up about half of a usual runtime of a chapter. And it's like, well, we still have all these pages. How about some 1 to 2 page vignettes of various horrific things that don't actually have Fran involved?
Yeah, they're essentially like 2-page horror stories. They're fun.
Yeah, we have one of my favorite recurring characters, which is 50s detective man, who is just a dude in a trench coat with a cap that shades his eyes, who can like see ghosts, I think, and wanders around town seeing various horrifically dead people that aren't there after he blinks.
Yeah, his gimmick is entirely, oh, that looks like a scene where someone died. Oh, nope, there's some dead ghost people. That's the end.
This town is really screwed up.
Yep. That is the long and short of everything he does.
There's also Eye Patch Scissor Girl that shows up a couple of times.
Yes, a Kill la Kill character shows up.
Eye Patch Scissor Girl, whose entire thing is she kills monsters that are about to kill people as if it were a horror movie. She appears to destroy the monster, like ruining the dramatic tension of like an attack is her entire gimmick.
Yes.
The second one's my favorite, though, which is a
dude is sleeping, has an out-of-body experience, and he's like, oh man, I hate when these happen in my dreams. Oh, well, I'm just going to look around my apartment. Man, my face looks weird when I'm asleep. Hey, why is my girlfriend breaking in? She didn't say she was coming over.
She's taking off my pants. Ooh.
She's taking off my pants. She's licking her lips. This might actually be something fun to watch. Wait, why are you pulling out scissors? Wait, no, stop!
I need to get back in my body!
And then it's just snip.
That's fun.
That made me cringe.
Yeah.
That made me cringe so hard I vacuumed into my own asshole.
Love it.
Anyway, that's volume 1. On to volume 2.
It doesn't slow down at all.
Nope.
Oh, I love this chapter.
This one's really I liked this one because it has like weird Lovecraftian elements, and y'all know that's my jam.
Yeah, this is another one of those ones that it's like it kind of ends happily. Like I'd argue it does.
Yeah, it's this one's actually really easy to summarize too, because it's mostly the story is there is this guy who is a painter, but unfortunately his eyesight is going, so he's not going to be able, like, the person who hired him is even saying, like, these aren't very good paintings.
He worked as a portrait artist, which there are enough vain rich people in Japan that's actually a steady market, but it wasn't like fulfilling artistically for him. So he tried to break into the high art scene, but the guy that he was trying to impress was like, yeah, no, your eyesight is clearly going. You aren't going to cut it like this. Just stick with the thing that you can do.
Yeah, and it came off as like a genuine, advice of like,
oh yeah, the guy wasn't even mean about it. He's like, this is all technically fine, but like it looks like it was traced off of something. There's no artistry or passion into it. Suddenly we're in blue period again. And like your eyes have been going for the last couple of years. You can still do portraits. There's good money in that, and you would like, this is just not gonna sell, but you can make a lot of money with the portraits, so I'd stick with that if I were you. Like he's really nice about it, honestly.
So obviously the painter takes the reasonable course of action and tries to suicide by bus, and conveniently the bus he jumped in front of was the one Fran was on.
I think he suicided. He legitimately said, I didn't see you.
Oh, you know what? That's also probably like it. Also, the bus barely hits him compared to when cars hit people in this. Normally, they're just eviscerated.
But like my one criticism would be like, dude, you couldn't hear the bus coming?
Well, that's the thing. He walked into the road without looking. Like, I didn't see the bus. He was still like, there was kind of that idea. It's pretty obvious the idea in the back of his head was like, if a bus just happened to run me over, I'd be fine with it. Like, it wasn't exactly an overt suicide attempt, but he kind of wanted to get hit by a bus.
So he tells his sob story to Fran, who's like, yeah, no, that's real rough, buddy.
We also learned that this is Fran's personal bus because we see the driver.
Weird, because she has a personal, like, pharmaceutical van. She has a personal bus. It's just like,
look, she gets paid a lot for her crimes against nature. She's living well.
Yeah, it makes me rethink my career.
Is it just me, or did the bus driver look like the katana fiend from Chainsaw Man?
Oh, hell yes. Yes.
I mean, Sam's sword sticking out of his head, kinda, yeah.
Exactly. Painter Man tells Fran his sob story, and she's like, that's real rough, buddy. I mean, I technically have like an experimental procedure I can do. And he's like, really? You can save my eyesight? Well, I didn't say that. I said I have an experimental procedure. It might make your eyes even better than they were before, but it's really like fringe stuff. And he's like, do it. I don't care. Do it.
He's like, it could also just make you completely blind.
He's like, I'm willing to take that chance.
The surgery where she needs to cut someone's skull in half to replace their eyes.
Yep. Fran really, really likes lobotomizing people.
Yeah.
Hey, not lobotomy. His brain is intact.
It's craniotomy.
That's the word I was looking for. Thank you, Jay.
But anyway, he gets a new pair of eyes. And when he does the Twilight Zone bandage unveil, they're weird, mystical space. Like, they're very, like...
They're mantis shrimp eyes.
Uh-huh.
I don't think they are. I think that's just the example she uses, that
yes.
They are eyes that can see.
Because Fran mentions the whole mantis shrimp thing, and she says he doesn't quite have the same visual range that they do, but he can see infrared and ultraviolet and many other spectrums of light that humans just aren't capable of seeing normally.
Because essentially, she says mantis shrimp have 16 color receptors. Humans only have 3. I've quadrupled yours, so he has 12.
Yeah, so he should be perfectly fine, and obviously his brain should be fully equipped to process all this new information.
I'm assuming she also did things to his brain.
That's a huge assumption.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would assume she didn't because she probably didn't think of it at the time. Which kind of explains his reaction to what he sees. We get some real color out of space.
Yeah, he was basically like tripping the heck out. Like, what the hell?
He runs into the murder woods, and apparently some of the wavelengths you can see are the wavelengths ghosts and interdimensional monsters live on, based on what we're seeing.
Yeah, basically.
He's reached insight 20 and he can see the amygdala clinging to the cathedral. He has gone full Bloodborne.
So you're saying, Sam, that you would have this procedure?
Shut up.
Anyway, as he's running through the woods, he eventually like finds a clearing, and the like monsters he was running from, because he's seeing like things from all different wavelengths. He sees a like a naked woman just in the woods, kind of like mute and not really talking, and he's just like, wait, what's going on? This incredibly beautiful woman is just out here like some kind of like tree nymph.
She's like cold as ice.
In this beautiful clearing that has
colors and like anything seen on Earth. And like, it's a love at first sight thing. She's so beautiful that he immediately is like, please, I have to know your name. Can you understand me? Can you even hear me? And she like leads him along. Mm-hmm. And you think it's going to be a like leads him to his death thing. And then you look at the page count and you're like, wait, there's still like 5 pages left.
Yeah, we cut to the next page, and he's back visiting Fran for like his checkup. He's got like a full beard, so he's been out there for months.
And he's like, I really have to thank you. Like, I was horrified at first, but I don't think I would have been able to see her without these eyes. And she is the inspiration that has taken my art to the next level.
Allow me to show you the
portrait of her I've painted.
Yes, as thanks for giving me this wonderful new life, I'm going to give you this portrait I painted of her. And Okita looks at it and blanches and is like, what the Fran, you have to tell. And she's like, no, shut up.
Shut up.
Don't ruin this for him.
It's love. Don't ruin it for him. That's wonderful. You go back to your weird woods wife and live a nice life.
Thank you, Fran. I owe my paradise to you.
Mm-hmm.
Fran, that thing he's living with, shut up.
Shut up. This is romantic.
Don't ruin the paradise he has.
And notably, we never actually see what's on the portrait.
Yeah, the audience is not allowed to know the horror of what she is. Because she's something that freaks out Okita, and Okita sees weird every day, so...
Okita lives with Fran.
Yeah.
Okita is weird every day.
But it's a really nice scene of them just cuddling in the glade under the moonlight as he's painting more. And Fran's just like, what a beautiful relationship they have. And everyone's just like, what horrible monster is he living with? But I guess it's fine.
Yes, it's fine. I mean, if it's not physically or emotionally hurting him.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's no harm to him.
So my personal theory is it's a bear.
Oh, yeah, I was expecting us to see the canvas and find out that it was a bear or something. Like,
but if it was a bear, would Okita have had that much of an expression? Like, he would have been like, that's kind of weird. You think we should tell him it's a bear? Like,
that dude's fucking a bear.
No, Okita was legitimately
like
scared.
terrified.
Yeah, Okita was like fearful of the wrath of God is how he is portrayed. Like, he is drawn the most intensely of any, because this chapter actually has like a lot of like beautiful like painted scenery other than the horrible monsters in the woods for that one panel. But like, he's got like terrified eyes.
I also don't think, since we're talking about the same forest, I don't think it's one of the dogs either.
No, I can
probably
imagine.
Not.
The dogs are probably dead, in all honesty. I doubt they survived on their own.
But I'm just saying, like, I don't think he would have had that visceral of a reaction. It's just like, you ran into one of your pets.
The point, it is some unknowable horror that apparently was still a very good painting, is what Fran says. That painting was beautiful. So he got what he wanted.
That's the great thing. A lot of it is left up to your own interpretation. And in all honesty, it's kind of hard to see this as a bad outcome because he's really, he's genuinely content now.
It's not hurting him. If he's still interacting with his company, he's still making money. It's like, there's legitimately no downside to this.
Yeah, he's a man who wanted to kill himself and found motivation in life. I can't fault anything that, like, anything he does was better. Like,
he saves all this money because his wife just runs around naked. It's great.
Hey, they're not married. Don't put labels on their relationship.
There's a lot left up to interpretation about all of this, and your mind can wander where it pleases.
That was a deep and nuanced chapter. You guys want to talk about the Mafia now?
Oh my god, my
this
favorite.
I loved it, but I hated it because it just devolved into nonsense.
I loved the nonsense. Oh my god. Okay, so I like the whole time I was going through Franken Fran at this point, I started to realize that I was binging this all really fast and like, wow, this is very much not my taste, but I enjoy it a lot. And then I got to this one, and almost every single page turn had me laughing out loud uncontrollably.
Yeah.
I loved this.
This chapter is a comedy, in case that isn't obvious. Like,
oh my god, this was my absolute favorite chapter. There are some chapters I'd argue are like more interesting, like have like, you know, some level of philosophy to them that makes them more interesting to discuss. But my god, was this so funny.
Yeah, because it's honestly, we'd probably be doing it a disservice to like fully describe what's happening, because it literally flips on a dime each page turn.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like
this one's maniac.
Yeah,
Like,
I think it's better to talk about it more in the abstract, because one of the things that's really good about it is like you're reading it, and like as soon as you think you know where it's going, the page turns and it gets more insane somehow. And like that's the whole like conceit of this chapter. And oh my god.
I forget, doesn't it open with after like the initial thing, Fran's complaining about money troubles?
uh-huh.
Like she wants to buy something in particular, but she doesn't have enough for it. That's why her motivation for this entire chapter is just, hey, people are willing to pay you to do this weird thing. Sure, I don't care.
She basically does war profiteering. She plays both sides of a major criminal conflict.
Yeah, because essentially the mafia, there are two sides of this. There is the chairman of the mafia currently, because the former Don died.
He's the president of the front company and also the like Don.
Yeah, he's the Don now because the former Don died. But what happened was the people who don't like him, there's a rumor going around that the Don had a bastard son, which would have more claim because he's also the son of the Don, actually, because he says that that kid would be my brother. It's enough that someone would lay claim. It throws his like just immediately taking the position into question, which is enough for assassination attempts to constantly keep happening. To this point, he wants a perfect body double, which is essentially a exact clone of him.
Which he does. He gets this body double by capturing the sniper who took out his previous body double.
Because that's the other thing. He's had body doubles. He goes to Fran because he's running out of them.
Yep. And like essentially what is happening is every time they find an assassin for either him or the other side, they use the parts for that assassination or the team of those dead bodies to create the new bodies who are then thrown, and it just keeps happening.
It just keeps escalating, and it has to be experienced firsthand because
it culminates in just a giant shootout where multiple clones of this guy are shooting each other.
Are all murdering each other. Yeah, it's great. But hey, Fran's getting that bread. She's on that grind set.
Yeah, and Fran has so much money at the end. She no longer knows what's going on.
She doesn't care.
I don't know which way's up anymore.
But what has happened is apparently the degradation of having so many cloned bodies. Apparently each time she was doing the procedure, afterwards she's ruminating, there's probably some like leftover aggression because nothing can perfectly be done. They were becoming more and more homicidal each time she did the procedure, to the point that the people we have left are invalids in a mental asylum who can do nothing other than saying kill them all.
Immune response had to be suppressed so that the bodies would take the new parts and not reject them. So they're now diseased, psychotic, murderous machines in a mental institution.
I just remembered it's at this point it's revealed, because Okita goes like, well, I'm sure you made a lot of money from this, right? Were you like doing that for a reason? It's like, I bought something that will revolutionize science.
Oh my God. I have a thing about this because my first like foray into nerdiness was dinosaurs. And I've never lost that love and passion for extinct fauna. And I see this shot of this fossil, and I'm sitting there, it's like, okay, Franken Fran is a supernatural universe because, Fran existing already establishes that. But I'm sitting here like, that looks so fake.
It's a fossil of an angel is what it is.
And it's like the skeleton is suspiciously perfectly preserved. It looks posed. And then there's this ammonite fossil in the corner that's like fossil.png just stuck on there, and I'm sitting there like, this looks so fake. Like, am I supposed to take this seriously? I turn the page and there is Okita saying, I don't have the heart to tell her this is obviously fake. And I'm like, sold! Best chapter ever! That was the best ending ever.
Fran committed war crimes to fund her purchase of a clearly fake angel fossil because Fran is a idealistic romantic who wants to believe it exists, so she convinced herself it was scientific.
This is the most Fran chapter. It's everything about her personality just turned to 11 and shoved to the forefront.
It's the occasional reminder you need that Fran is not an all-knowing genius. She makes mistakes, which is why things go wrong a lot of the time.
She is intelligence 20, wisdom 2. Anyway, I hope you don't have a phobia of cockroaches, because this next chapter, hoo boy. Speaking of Hollow Knight...
I love the author's notes for this one, because he mentions, like, as I was writing this chapter, I started to think that the cockroaches were actually really kind of beautiful, so I started, like, doing them in more detail.
Anyway, Fran is commissioned by a pharmaceutical giant, I think, to develop a super pesticide that will annihilate cockroaches at, like, the genetic level. Basically it's this super bioweapon that will sterilize cockroaches off the face of the earth.
The genophage.
Yeah. Yes, it's the genophage for cockroaches.
Yeah. Fran heard this request and was just like, you want me to make super intelligent cockroaches? No, Fran, no one said that. Why did you do that?
No.
No. That's not what she heard. She starts experimenting, obviously trying to figure out,
Well, Fran's like, this is the first non-surgery request I've had in like a year. It's an actual research grant. Ooh, this is going to be fun.
And then she uses the money to do her own thing, because when they come to get the results of her research, she's just like, so I've been running them through mazes and they've gotten smarter. Why would you do
what I wanted at all?
Because essentially what happens immediately is they break containment protocol. And like the woman who's there with her two lackeys essentially reveals that she was raised in a completely sterile environment. And thus is got a extreme germophobia, which she coalesces into, I hate cockroaches the most because they're so dirty, which arguably they're not really that dirty, but whatever.
Yeah.
What cockroaches are associated culturally with decay.
They're associated culturally with it, and this woman is not exactly the most intelligent individual.
No, she's a very rich person who says isn't it the duty of the people on top to help the smaller people. I'll eradicate the cockroaches.
She was not just raised in a sterile environment. She was also given a very elite education, emphasis on elite. And so she actually mentions the fact that the first time she came out to see society, she was viscerally disgusted.
Mm-hmm. Her superiority complex is big enough to eclipse the fucking sun.
Yes.
Anyway, the cockroaches breach protocol and are surrounding the building, to which she goes, what? Why is that even a thing that can happen? Fran's like, I made super intelligent cockroaches. Why would you do that?
Well, I needed to know if the cockroaches could sense the pesticides, so I created basically rat mazes for them where they had food at the end, and one of the foods was laced with pesticide and the other wasn't. And I guess they developed a resistance to the pesticide, and also...
They developed a hive mind, I think.
They developed a hive mind.
Because she makes a thing like, oh, yes, well, your brain is just neurons firing. So if there are enough cockroaches in a concentrated area, clearly they'll also act as a human brain. Why would you think that? Also, Fran, why did you make super intelligent cockroaches? We really never answered that question.
I don't think the question ever does get answered.
So, Fran, why did you do this? Oh, hey, the cockroaches are sending over their demands.
What?
What do you mean the cockroaches are making demands?
Yeah, they send an email.
Yeah, they send an email.
They send an email. I think there's a throwaway line about how they're doing it is they're communicating with someone trapped on the other side, like they're using them as someone to send the commands over. or someone's translating what they're saying, like something that forms an email.
And it's like, we demand the right to life. We demand the immediate cessation of the production of pesticide and its abolition. And we demand that you turn over all war criminals. And Fran's like, okay, so what do you mean by war criminals? Are you really talking to the bugs?
You're really negotiating with them?
You're negotiating with terrorist bugs
that you created also. but like, I just love how Fran's first question is, what do you mean by war criminals? Because I've had that thrown at me a lot. I just want to make sure I'm not, the problem here.
On the list.
Whoever is most responsible for the production of this pesticide. And Fran's like, oh, well, I'm just a researcher. She's the one who funded me.
And yeah, the lackeys to the president immediately turn on her, going like, nope, yep, we'll give her up. And she's like, what? And it's like, well, what are you going to do with her? Fran doesn't want anyone to die is her whole thing. So she's just like, her body will be used as sustenance so that we can lay our eggs in and produce more young. And Fran's like, oh, that doesn't sound great, but
But like, I mean, just turning her over would save more lives. So
she's doing the math, and then
when you give Fran a trolley problem, you know what she's going to pick.
Yeah. So the three of them make a break for it because essentially what the two others are doing is they're going to sacrifice.
She makes a break for it. The other two follow her with the intent of capturing her and feeding her to the cockroaches.
And then the cockroaches overtake them immediately because they escape after and are chasing after her. And then we cut to Fran's guards burning the cockroaches and the people and everything. Because
no, the people triggered the landmines.
Oh, that's right, because there's landmines around. Oh my god!
Wouldn't there be?
You're right.
She needs that protection.
There's also fire on the cockroaches though, because they have like a burn squad going after them.
It's like, okay, so the humans actually survived all the burning.
The cockroaches, as they spread out more, their hive mind got disconnected, and they just became regular cockroaches again, I guess.
And a lot of them burned in that explosion.
Essentially, Fran was just like, well, good thing my new skin graft works perfectly. The president just kind of unveils her bandages, and she's like, my skin is perfect. Wow. Like, I think it's even better than...
It's like I'm a teenager again.
She's slowly pulling off the bandages, and both she and the audience is expecting some Cronenberg horror, and her skin is totally fine. Oh, it's so supple.
She's like, she's admiring her skin. She's cupping her own breasts, which is quite a page.
Normally in Franken Fran, when there's nudity, it's medical. Sometimes it isn't. This is one of those pages.
Yeah. She's like, wow, it's almost like I'm a teenager again. And Fran's like, yeah, no, I'm pretty proud of this. After all, cockroach chitin makes for a very great substitute for human skin.
Or chitin.
Chitin, yeah. That's it.
I've heard it both ways.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Chitin's more fun to say. and it cuts away. The two mooks, also with their skin restored, getting eaten by the cockroaches. And Fran going like, no, President, don't peel off your skin. I worked so hard on that.
Well, they're laughing at her.
Yeah.
They're not being eaten by the cockroaches either. I think they're just in a cockroach-filled room because they also have the cockroach skin on. Like, I think they've just accepted that they are part cockroach.
I was just gonna comment on her absolute disgust. This is a woman who, again, was raised in a completely sterile environment, completely disgusted with cockroaches and their very being, and now is literally living
as part cockroach.
A personal hell of her own creation.
Yes, her personal hell.
Welcome to Franken Fran. I don't remember exactly when this is. I don't remember if it's between chapters or if it's one of the
I think it's the bonus at the end of volume 2, if it's the scene I'm picking up.
Because at one point we do catch back up with
President Chan
getting a checkup on her skin, and there has been a development.
She started growing cockroach legs out of her dermis.
Yeah. Oh man, this next chapter, huh? Fran does not take rejection well.
This is another one of those happy endings.
I think it's happy.
Fran runs into a young girl being sad in the snow, and she's like, "Oh, is your doll broken? I can't really do anything about that. I work with flesh." And the girl's like, "My brother has a severe heart disease, and none of the doctors in Japan can help him." And Fran's like, "A severe heart disease, you say? I can probably fix that." She walks into the hospital like, "Hey, give me this kid's brother so I can fix him." And the hospital director's like, "Oh no, I know who you are."
Let me pull out my pamphlet.
Fair reaction. Like, hospital should have a warning, do not accept this person sign of her. Like,
Yes.
My favorite bit is in the panel where he's like, "I know all about the horrid things you do, the crimes against nature you commit." And it's like showing the various horrific things that Fran has done in the past.
I read it in here.
And he holds up Volume 1 of Franken Fran.
that's a really good panel.
Which means the manga diegetically exists in universe.
I mean, fair. Fran did do a snuff film, so those covers make sense.
That's true. That's true.
So, yes, the manga in universe is nonfiction and a documentary. Anyway, Fran doesn't really take being rejected well.
Nope.
The director's like, I would have you arrested immediately if you didn't have a weirdly deep connection to the police.
How do you know the police that well? Well, if you read that manga you're holding.
So Fran's like, "Well, I mean, I really want to help this kid, but I guess I can't, so whatever."
She looks up the doctor that in America that the kid is being sent to and is like, "Well, he does have a really good record. I guess I can trust this to this guy."
Kind of.
I mean, I could save them the $16 million by just doing this here, but no, they're gonna raise a whole bunch of money and send him to America. Blech.
Yeah, so
and then the doctor gets shot in a carjacking.
Yeah, so there's a really weird panel because right before Fran's talking about, like, I'll figure something out, and then we cut immediately to him getting shot in a carjacking.
I know.
Did Fran do that?
I genuinely don't think she did.
That seems so out of character.
The manga definitely frames it as if that's a possibility, though, right? I'm not.
Well, yeah, I
the
mean,
manga frames it as a possibility, but it's also like, given Fran's reaction, it seems like just a genuine act of fate.
Yeah, because she looks genuinely shocked to hear this doctor was gunned down after she'd already resolved herself to the fact that he was going to perform the surgery.
like she's not happy that it happened either, because like it's very much the case where this kid was going to go to this guy. It's way more expensive, but fine, I guess he's good enough. I'll leave it in his hands. And then he gets shot, and like she's not happy that like this done deal is no longer a done deal, because now she has to convince the hospital to let her do it.
Because she's still not allowed to, and essentially, like, what it comes down to, like, they're not letting me, and she's talking to the sister because they have not left Japan yet. I don't.
The brother is heading toward the plane to go to America.
Uh-huh. And, Fran tries her last minute attempt, like, seriously, I can save him. And
if he goes to America, the doctor who was going to do this is in critical condition. He survives the carjacking, which again is sort of the one where it's like, did Fran do that because he survived the carjacking? But like, I don't think so
Fran
personally.
knows a lot about this is the thing.
But we know Fran has a truly inordinate amount of access to information. So
yeah, it's one of those ones where, like, Matt, you are correct. You can interpret it that way. I personally don't, because I think it's out of character for Fran, but it is framed to make you question that.
And in, like, her depression about, like, I can save him, and now he's going to go with some kind of second-rate surgeon. She talks to the sister, who's just like, well, if my doll broke, I wouldn't get all upset about that. I'd just make a better doll. And Fran's just like, make a better doll. I know exactly what you're telling me to do. Make super intelligent cockroaches? No, Fran, stop. Get off that.
Quick, charter a plane to America. You think that Fran is just going to break into the hospital and fix the boy. No, Fran breaks into the hospital and fixes the doctor who is going to fix the boy.
Like, really fixes him, too, because I think she supercharged him with, like...
Yeah.
Something's wrong with... He's got, like, 3 eyes in one socket after she's done with him.
The next panel is him being like, all right, time to prep for surgery. Got to do that got to do that heart transplant in order to save this boy. And all the nurses are like, doctor, you really shouldn't be up. It's like been 3 days since you got shot. And he's like, what? No, I feel fine. And it cuts to his face where like one eye is crossed off to the side. He might have two eyes in one socket, or it might be rolling so fast that it looks like it. Either way, you're like, oh, Frank woke this guy up somehow. Obviously, this means the transplant is going to fail. No, he actually performs the transplant better than he ever possibly could have. The nurses say it's like he has been possessed by the god of medicine.
To which the little girl knows deep in that Santa is real and says a prayer to her new god. That is Franken Fran, savior of her brother's life.
There's this big media surge around it because it's like, honestly, as a former newsman, it's like, yeah, no, this is a great feel-good story. Huge fundraising drive. So the community came together to raise the money to send this kid off to America to save his life, and it was a success. This is great. Hey.
Well, and also the doctor gets shot but recovers in time to do the surgery anyway.
Exactly. It is a textbook front page story. And so the reporter is like, sister of the miracle boy, do you have anything you want to say? I know you're like young, so this is probably a bit over your head. And the girl takes the microphone and says, hey, weird doll lady, you helped make this happen, didn't you? Thank you. And Fran just smiles and walks away like, my work here is done.
It's a nice happy ending.
Yep.
Happier if you don't assume Fran was the one who got the guy shot, but yeah.
Happier if you don't look to the side of the panel where like all the people involved in this are happening during the news conference, and you see Dr. Jadral there with an eye patch over the like 2-eye socket, cackling like a madman.
I'm sure he's fine.
That's fine.
He's fine.
I want to do more surgery. Next episode's a 2-parter, though, so that's fun.
This could almost be described as an arc. It's got actual continuity. Because you all remember Detective Girl, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she shows up in part 2 of this. In part 1, it's a classic of two boys are fighting over a girl, and the girl really cares for both of them. She just can't choose.
Fran's at high school again, too, for some reason.
She got bored and decided to go to class. Why not?
It's real fun because she's reading her romance novel as she walks in on these two boys fighting over this girl. And she goes, no, please, don't fight over me. And they're like, why would we be fighting over you?
She's reading from a script. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, what am I supposed to say here? Oh, right. No, boys, don't fight over me. And I mean, to be fair, she does stop the fight because they're so derailed by this non sequitur that they do indeed stop punching each other. So, I mean, mission accomplished.
And yeah, so the girl essentially just says, I don't know. I can't choose. They're both so great. I wish I could be with both of them. And Fran's like, dangerous medical procedure? And the girl's just like, I'll do anything. Dangerous medical procedure. Okay.
Hey, kids, you remember learning in middle school biology about cell mitosis?
Let's do that with an entire person.
Yeah, because we cut to a week later. The boys have come to the lab to figure out what's going on, and they see the girl they're both into has like basically she's in like a vat of science goop basically, and she has almost completely mitosized in that there is two of her attached at the shoulder
and the face.
Yes,
the side of the face is still fused.
Yep.
He's a full-on Siamese.
Yep. Well, that's not the term anymore, but
no, it's not.
It's conjoined. They're both terrified by this crime of nature that's going on, and it's got a great line from Fran of like, "Oh no, are you embarrassed that you saw her naked?"
They're like, "That's the last thing that we were looking at, actually."
I understand this is an important time in the relationship. This is a crime against nature.
Also, why is that one lab we passed by just labeled super intelligent cockroaches? Fran, what's going on here?
Anyway, Fran is like, yeah, so mitosis, am I right? And they're like, no. The girl finishes mitosizing and now has a twin stroke clone. And it's like, wait, hold on. Fran thought the crux of the problem was boys fighting over her. No, the crux of the problem was that girl could not choose. We now have two girls who can't choose.
They essentially say, okay, well, one of you can go with the other, and then you can both do. What Fran thought the problem was the girl didn't want to hurt one of them by choosing the other.
She's just indecisive.
No, the crux of the problem is girl wants both of them. Girl wants two hotties. Yep. Because
also both of the clones start fighting over who gets both of them, basically.
Because essentially what also happens is Fran makes a note about, like, I think maybe the brain can't duplicate itself perfectly. Their personalities appear to have differed slightly. So one of them is a little more passive and one of them is a little more argumentative. Or I think they're both argumentative, actually.
One of them's more violent.
Yeah, one is more passive and one is more aggressive, but that doesn't mean that the passive one is completely without fire at all, because them both acting like jerks causes the two boys to realize, I maybe don't like you as much as I thought I did. And they turn to each other. We're still friends, right? Yeah, sure, let's go.
Yep.
No, that's great, because they see the girls fighting, and it gets to, like, extreme levels of violence, because this is Franken Fran.
Grabbing scalpels and start hacking each other apart.
One of them grabs a scalpel and says, "Die, you skank," and I just had to just stop reading to laugh right there, because that line comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, and the boys are like, okay, I know that we were the ones who kind of started this drama, but we don't want any more of this drama. We're outie.
Like, as they're leaving, and it's like, hey, we're still friends, right? Yeah, let's hang out somewhere. Let's go to the arcade or something. Like, okay.
Saying they have reached a new level of, like, understanding between the two of them. No one else is going to understand this crazy.
Uh-huh.
Well, conveniently, like all crimes in Franken Fran, the problem murders itself out, and the two dead bodies conveniently have enough parts to make one functioning girl again.
Yep.
And then everything
solved.
Wait, hold on. Why is the next chapter called Part 2? Oh, no.
Oh, no. This, honestly, I think is by far the most horrifying out of all of the chapters that we read.
Because like, it opens up with the girl getting murdered by a guy in an alley, like...
Like real Freddy Krueger style.
Oh yeah, you got the claw hands and everything, and she is dismembered.
Mm-hmm.
Fear not. Detective Kuho's on the case.
Stop, you monster! And then Fran's like, "Why are you holding a gun up to Rugrats, Fran?"
She's like, "Fran, all the various crimes you've committed. Now you've killed this girl." It's like, I guess I've killed this girl.
Sickly.
What do you mean you guess you've killed her? Well, I really just eliminated a few clones. What?
Fran, what? Also, why does that bag you're holding say super intelligent cockroaches? Fran!
Okay, Matt, I think you're holding onto that one a bit hard.
No.
I mean, I want to see Cockroach Kun back, but... But anyway, Cockroach Kun isn't actually in this chapter because it is literally hundreds of clones of Yoka. In putting the two mitosis clones back together, they retained the ability to I don't know what the verb form of mitosis is, but
split, essentially.
Yeah, they can infinitely mitosize or whatever.
It's 1 year before like the entire world is overrun.
Yeah, because Fran does the math of the exponential growth of it.
Because essentially what happened was she was keeping her for observation, realized she could split, and then didn't realize that she had been splitting for a while already and had escaped.
Well, there were some clones who one divisions that like would hide in different areas of the lab, divide, and then those divisions would go off, and then like she eventually just lost track of who was dividing and how many divisions there were.
Yeah, so there is a essentially potentially infinite number of these girls out there that need to be tracked down and disposed of, because if they reproduce infinitely, the world will be overrun by them.
It's overpopulation with one person. Yes.
But is it murder? Technically.
Yes, it is.
Yes, objectively.
But is it not for the greater good, Detective Girl? She's like, I don't know, Fran, you're very convincing. What if I gave you super surgery powers? Fran,
Wait,
I really
what?
don't want to do this.
Wait, what do you mean? I mean, I could give you a sensory organ that will let you really efficiently track down these clones, and also
Give you a hit of dopamine to your brain.
So you don't freeze up under pressure.
I don't think I want that. Too late, I did it. What?
Well,
And-
technically she does go, well, I guess, and that's enough.
And for the next 10 weeks, there is a strain of insane murders where girls are being hunted down and killed by these phantom butchers that fade away into the night until suddenly they vanish, leaving nothing but terror in their wake.
And the cops can't do anything about them. It's almost like they've got someone on the inside.
Yep.
They're always one step ahead of the cops.
Oh, and it's
And like that's all horrifying enough, but then we get to the end and
Friends like, by the way, there was a potentially infinite number of targets. So I also did something else when I did your surgery, and there were a potentially infinite number of hunters. Fran, what did you do?
I just cloned you a bunch. So
you get to pick who your body is.
Which one of you wants to survive the most?
And then she then has to hunt down herself.
Oh no, she doesn't even need to hunt them down because they're all right there.
They're
in
all
the lab.
locked up together.
Yep. She gathered them all up.
And then we cut back to Detective Girl talking with the police chief, who's like, "Hey, so you're better after getting committed to the hospital, right?" "Oh yeah. I just got a bit of a headache. I need to take some aspirin. Why do I keep having dreams of Fran? I feel like I'm forgetting something really important."
Fran's a great friend.
That is the end of that. And wow, that one was
Something.
Great.
honestly, that's the one that got a horror reaction out of me the most because like
Oh yeah.
because like in a lot of ways, like not to disparage body horror, it's just not really my thing. It's like when you do an anthology when it's all body horror, I kind of got desensitized to it pretty quickly. Like it's all really great art and I enjoyed it just fine, but it was a lot of cases the humor was what got me more so than anything else. But this one actually legitimately horrified me. That one got under my skin.
Yep.
Metaphorically. Maybe you just forgot, Jacob.
Okay, wait a minute.
Maybe you have super intelligent cockroach skin. Jacob,
now that would get under my skin.
I need you to look behind you. Did you notice the closet behind you has tape on the door that says super intelligent cockroaches?
Oh God.
I knew there was a reason I stacked all those boxes against my closet.
Anyway, we have one more chapter left in our reading, so let's introduce a new main character.
Yeah.
Right at the end there.
Yep, time for Veronica.
Who introduces herself as another daughter of Dr.
Madaraki.
And she is a newer creation, so she is Fran's little sister.
Except unlike Fran, who's all about preserving life and advancing science in order to continue the preservation of human life, Veronica is designed to kill.
Yeah, she is designed to keep Dr. Madaraki safe, and so she is a perfect weapon of war.
Through extreme ultra-violence.
Yep.
Her arms are scythes.
She looks like an Edgar Allan Poe nightmare because she just produces guillotines from her shoulders.
And she was sent to go seek out Fran. We get a bit of a philosophical debate between the two of them because Veronica stumbles across a bunch of campers and ends up annihilating them pretty severely. The other thing that happens is when Veronica arrives, she disables the mansion security system and dismembers one of the Cronenberg horror family members of Fran's. And even though he should be able to regenerate, he for some reason can't.
Yeah, it's Aslan, I think, is the...
Yep.
I think he's the one who is the eye in the middle of like a cross shape helmet kind of thing.
And Fran's very not happy about this situation. As she is examining Aslan, she finds that there was a transmitter in his body that was sending out signals. Veronica returns as Fran is, air quotes, saving the campers that had been obliterated.
Because this is when they have the speech with each other about like, yeah, so I found the transmitter in Aslan, so clearly he was a spy. And I guess these campers also had like foreign passport. Like they were spies also for some reason.
Yeah, they were to whom the transmissions were being sent.
Yep. And so she's essentially going like, you weren't like mindlessly slaughtering. You were killing people you thought had done wrong and like were. So she's like, you aren't like some kind of murder bot, but don't you understand? Life is important. And I'm going to keep them alive no matter the cost. And Veronica's like, my warrior's code will not allow me to have a opponent to suffer. And Fran just goes like, who cares about suffering? They're alive. Like, look at my human centipede I've created.
And one of the things that I really like about it is while they're having this philosophical debate, Veronica points out the very true fact that what you're doing is causing them to suffer. Wouldn't it be better if their suffering just ended? And she talks about how awful these people are and how much of a plague that humanity is, that incredibly tired metaphor of humanity being a disease. And Fran points out that thing that Miyazaki films always conclude on, that basically everything that tries to crib from them always forgets. Humans are actually a natural product of this planet. And while, yes, we have the capacity to do very horrible things, life is still important, and preserving it and trying to make things better for as long as you can is worth something in and of itself.
Which is a really nice message. Unfortunately, it's coming from Fran as she's created a human centipede.
Which is actively begging for death.
And, you know, I really like the subtlety of this, because to some extent, this is another case where, like, Fran has dropped the nice girl attitude, and because she knows what these people did, she saved their lives, but, you know, they were trying to steal from the doctor, so a little pain and suffering is in her mind due.
Like, Fran thinks people should be punished for doing bad things. She just doesn't believe death should ever be on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Which, for a surgeon who specializes in reanimation, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, like, it's weird, because I'm just gonna say, on the absolute surface level, I agree with Fran's philosophy that life should be preserved at all costs. Because I'm of the opinion that so long as one is alive, one can strive to improve their situation. It's just, then Fran actually practically makes that happen, and you see the suffering get worse.
Like, Veronica does bring up a good point that, like, you're making these people hurt more.
Yeah, which is actually a big reason of why I really enjoyed this manga, because Fran basically serves as a counterpoint to one of my own philosophical beliefs, and I enjoyed being challenged like that.
That's sort of the really cool thing, because as wacky and as out there, as horrifying as it gets, there is like a philosophical thesis statement in this story. You know, the cases where it does decide to get philosophical, that's not done farcically. And you know, like, I don't believe that Veronica or Fran are entirely in the right. It's a very interesting question, and using the lens of this science fiction madness really does, you know, illustrate the point that it's not as simple as, you know, the black and white that these two represent.
Exist in, yeah.
Fran also added a shock collar to Veronica to zap her if she kills people again. So that's also a thing that happens.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Veronica does have a moment where she's like, at the very least, because of my warrior's code, I strive to kill as efficiently as possible to minimize suffering.
Bad Veronica, zap.
Nope, stop killing people. But yeah, that's where the volume ends on. It's not made inherently clear, but it's pretty much Veronica does live at the mansion moving forward, so you get some fun interactions with her.
Yep.
But the next chapter is her it's the bonus chapter. Yep.
Yeah, we get the bonus chapters, which starts off with Veronica's process of getting to the mansion.
Veronica's backstory is she was in a Wild West. It's literally just a Wild West story, actually, of lone gunman comes into town. Zombies attack. She kills all the zombies. The town is afraid of her because she's a murderer, and she moves on.
She wandered into Red Dead Redemption zombies.
Well, and I mean, like, the thing that the town is scared of is that she doesn't look that different from the zombies. Like, she's stitched together instead of falling apart. but she looks like an undead too, and they react poorly to her. I really like this is one of the more effective like horror short stories.
She specifically classifies the undead as ghouls, which for you non-horror connoisseurs out there, the difference being that and yes, I know zombies are supposed to be brains and, you know, consuming the living, but ghouls in a mythological sense are the ones more associated with cannibalism. So
Romero is what made that change culturally.
Yeah. So these are very specifically actively violent undead coming to murder and eat people.
And Veronica saves this town, and she's like, as she is like saved a little boy from the last of the ghouls that she brings down, she's like, sorry to intrude, but could I have some water? And the mother of the boy is still freaking out and tells her to leave, you monster. She also has an adorable puppy friend that I love.
In all fairness, they do tell her to leave and call her a monster because she is currently a whirling dervish of
bladed
arms.
Death.
Yeah, like
I mean, the intent of that is clear. They are like, in spite of the actions that she did showing that she's not a monster, they judged her by her appearance. It's one of those like it only has so many panels to work with, but tells its story really efficient. Like that's just a really good that's actually something that is pretty consistent, because like anthology stories can have like pacing issues sometimes. And like the story pacing of even like the 2-page horror stories were all very, very good. Like that's one of the strengths of Franken Fran, and I think one of the reasons why, despite it not really being my style, it was so easy for me to get into it.
Speaking of those 2-page horror stories, we got some good ones at the end of volume 2.
We do. Yeah.
The first one is my favorite. It's
What's that one?
The little boy, the woman. This is a famous Japanese monster. It's the woman with the mask, and she says, "Do you think I'm pretty?" And then she takes the mask off, and it's revealed like a huge, like horrible, multi-toothed face, and like, "Do you still think I'm pretty?" With the idea that like I forget what the chant you're supposed to say is. Like you're supposed to say yes or no because but what he immediately goes is like, "Oh yeah,
you're my favorite monster.
This is my fetish," and she's very weirded out by this.
Okay, you little pervert, go away.
He starts jumping into her mouth and is like, "You pervert."
Yes, eat me, mommy.
It's take those jaws and gobble me up. And she's like, "Oh no!" And then as he's being eaten, yeah, this rules.
Yeah.
And then it ends with her just saying in disgust, "You pervert."
Well, my night's over. This is weird.
Yeah, like it's because the entire point of that thing is supposed to be like it's a very well-worn trope that gets ruined because someone like really displays their fetishes. Like,
yep. And as we've clarified before, we do not shame on this podcast.
Well, in that one maybe.
When did Franken Fran come out again?
2006, I believe.
All right, so Franken Fran really predated and therefore presaged the monster phenomenon.
The Shape of Water crowd.
Yes.
We don't talk about that, okay? I was deeply disturbed, and Matt was just like, "What do you mean? It's a beautiful story." I'm like, "No."
Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess the critically acclaimed story was stupid and weird, and no one liked it. Oh, wait, no. I guess everyone else is wrong.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Okay.
I like Guillermo del Toro, and I've not seen that movie, but
It's wrong.
It's a really good movie about outsiders coming together. Unfortunately, one of the outsiders makes a fish man, but also it's a beautiful story in spite of that. But
Matt, you say that like I haven't taken numerous screenshots of Sidon from Breath of the Wild.
Oh, fair.
Again, we don't kink shame, no matter how tempted we are.
No matter how much we want to, Sam.
Anyway,
back to the completely normal Franken Fran, where nothing weird happens.
The next mini story is actually pretty normal. It's a hiker gets lost in the woods and gets distracted to come to a hearing because he hears help coming from it.
Yes, someone is yelling help.
And when he gets to the clearing, it's a bunch of zombies that yell help, and he's just like, well, I fucked up.
Guess I'm beyond help.
Well, they're learning. They learn that people come running when people scream help.
I actually really like how stoic this guy is. And like, it's the literal definition of stoicism, where he's like, well, I accept this situation.
Next one's pretty good. It's the girls' swim class going like, ew, there's a peeper out there. He's looking at us through the window, and they're like, we're on the 11th floor. Like,
we're on the 11th floor. How is... Oh, no, this is someone who hanged themselves out the window. Oh, God.
Yep.
That's a really long rope, too. This guy wanted his neck to break.
This guy knew what he was doing, probably, but...
It's like, reminder that the way the gallows kills you is not actually strangulation, but by breaking your neck. This guy made sure.
Yeah, it's supposed to be quick. That's the reason why people do it, but...
Yep. Then there's the spirit photography one, which is the guy investigating... Because this is another like Japanese urban legend about like the photo of people that the more you look at it, they come closer and closer until they kill you. I believe it was like an early internet thing where the Microsoft Rolling Hills background, there was the one you could get where it was the it had like someone standing on the hill and it would update just to freak people.
Yeah, so we have a Fatal Frame creepypasta happen.
Yeah, and essentially what the point of this is when you open it the last time, they reach through the photo and kill you. But he opens up the photo, and the monster that's supposed to jump out is being killed by Scissor Girl, because that's what she does.
By Scissor Eye Patch Girl. Yes, thank you, Kill Reject. I appreciate your existence.
Next one is really somber. It's about a suicide victim jumping in front of a train. And the crew who has to clean these up is putting their mask on. It's just like, oh, geez, you're just making more of a mess. Oh, it's a girl. Jeez, I hate it when this happens. And they're cleaning up the things.
Sure,
and then the next
has been a lot of these lately.
Yeah, the next page is bags already full. Stop bitching and keep picking up. And we see down the line, it is just dead bodies over and over, littering the train track. We can't keep the train stopped forever.
It's the fields of Verdun, but just a train track. It's
dark.
Yeah, it's great fridge horror, because the more you think about it, the worse it gets.
Oh, man. Next one is the two moms at the park where one of their young sons has run off on his own. And they're like, hey, you got to be careful. There's like creepers all around, or there's perverts looking for kids. Didn't you see the news? And then he coughs up. He's choking and he coughs up. What is someone's finger? And the mom goes, whose finger is that? And then we get an off-screen scene of people screaming at what we assume is a dead body from where this kid just came running from.
Yeah, I really like these little 2-page horror stories because they do great subtle horror. Mm-hmm. You know, that whole philosophy of the less you explain, the scarier it gets.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's those, and then also Eye Patch Scissor Girl also happens sometimes to make it really funny.
Yeah, well, it's kind of the Hitchcockian idea of suspense, where it's like, if a bomb suddenly goes off, that's startling the first time, but it doesn't really stick with you. But if you're told that a bomb will go off in 10 minutes, you have 10 minutes of suspense. And so it's these really subtle implications that something is very wrong without any greater explanation, and that lets your imagination just go insane.
Yeah, I want to like run a tabletop RPG set in the land of that train that's stopped by infinite dead bodies.
Dude, that is something straight out of the Magnus archives.
Oh, but anyway, that's the end of volume 2.
Yes, it is, and that's the end of our reading.
Well, there's another one with the detective who can see ghosts that we get a little bit more body horror to end it off with. But that's where we get the this town is screwed up, which I agree. Perfect way of ending volume 2.
Yeah, we talked about that one when we did the first one. Actually, we kind of just looped into it. But yeah.
But yeah, that's the end of our reading. So, favorite character, everybody. I mean, the obvious answer is Fran, because she is the most consistently appearing character and the most consistently charming character in the entire manga. So to move beyond the obvious, I am going to say I really like Okita. You know, having done this podcast for a while, I have found that I actually really like the straight man characters in these kinds of manga that rely on absurd situations. because it's nice to have someone who's more grounded than everything else in the universe and is able to look at the insanity and go, hey, that's fucked up, isn't it?
It's one of those ones where when that sort of self-awareness is done correctly, it helps the suspension of disbelief so you can just enjoy the wacky.
Exactly. It's the same effect as Shinpachi, except instead of acknowledging the ridiculousness as being funny, it's acknowledging, okay, this is actually like really horrific and scarring, right? We all agree on this, right? And nobody agrees with him. And he's like, okay, sure.
Okay, fine. I guess I'll just accept this then.
So yeah, obvious choice being Fran, less obvious choice being Okita. Jay, I'm curious, who's your favorite character?
Damn it, Sam, you just took it. So yes, I would have to 100% agree that Fran is my number one in this set of reading. Later on, I have some other characters that have yet to be introduced, but Okita is definitely, he remains at my top second, just because he is the voice of reason of all the really screwed up crap that's happening right now. And yeah, I just love him.
Matt, what do you think?
So, I mean, Fran's an obvious choice. I feel a little bit remiss. We only read the first 2 volumes because I also really like Veronica as a character, but not based on what she did in the one chapter she's in. So, she's pretty great. But if I had to pick from this reading, Police Girl, this isn't Helsing, Detective Girl is probably my favorite, just as a recurring character, because I really appreciate when she's there, because she's normally a comedy beat, because normally she's a normal person who ends up at the butt of Fran's nonsense and normally suffers from it, but it's normally in like a comedic way.
Yeah.
Which kind of like, a lot of her stories, if she wasn't like overreacting to how like in a bad situation she was, it'd just be really dark, or it'd be Fran just doing everything without like anyone bumping up against her, and that's not really great. So she
who's the one from Chainsaw Man?
Kobeni?
Yeah, she's like a more likable Kobeni in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Hugh.
What do you mean more likable?
Yeah, you don't make a lot of friends on the internet, Jacob, not liking Kobeni.
I explained why I didn't like Kobeni in our first episode of Chainsaw Man.
Those people also heard you explain it. They still disagree with you.
Very strong.
They have every right to be wrong. But anyway, continue.
Damn it, Jake, get out of my head. You took all my quips.
But was there anything else, Matt?
That was Jay's, or no, it's me. I was unaware who was talking. No, Detective Girl's pretty good. If I had to pick like a character I really liked in this, whatever that monster from the painter, I really like her. She's just got a great design, and the subtle horror of what is going on is it really sticks with me.
I would say the monster in that case, I know that we're not on the next question yet, did nothing wrong. At all. Just happened to exist. This guy is like really crushing on you hard. And you're just like,
Well, she seems into him. Like, they're cuddling at the end.
Yeah.
Unless he just sees it as cuddling and it's actually some kind of horrible brain eating thing, but who knows?
Well.
We literally do not know.
Yeah,
that's sort of the point.
The closest we get is his weird crying when he says that's my paradise, but that's also could just be his eyes are weird, because his tears come down in like a full sheet is the weird thing, but that's getting a bit into it. But Jacob,
for joy is a thing. Yeah. So yet again, Fran is obviously not just like one of the few main characters who is recurring, but also just a great character in general. So how can you not love Fran? And honestly, despite the fact that we didn't see very much of her, I do think Veronica is a really interesting character, because in a lot of ways, Veronica is the only character who has shown up that can actually challenge Fran directly on an ideological level. Because everyone else, like when Fran gets serious, she kind of shows that she is way more in control than everyone else seems to realize. Like when things go wrong, it's because she doesn't think about the consequences later. But like if there's a problem to solve now, Fran's got it covered. So Veronica being able to more directly challenge Fran, I really appreciated it. I really liked the bonus chapter with her. Really quick, really subtle, really snappy, got to the point fast. But I also really liked the characters that stood out to me was Tajima from the second case and his girlfriend whose name I can't recall, and then the two kids who switched genders. The four of them, of all of the like one-off characters, are definitely the ones that stood out the most to me. I guess I'm as much of a romantic as Fran is. Maybe not the same kind of romantic, but to the same degree.
I mean, I'm glad you said it, Jake. Otherwise, I would have. So, favorite? Case is better to say because we actually have two-parters and follow-ups. So, yeah, favorite case. It's like I said, head girl, dude that murdered the girl because psychopathy.
Mm-hmm.
And she basically turned into the carrion monster. That's my favorite. It's like I said earlier in this episode, it really feels like the mangaka hit his stride on what he wanted this concept to be. And that was just the peak of, yes, this is what Franken Fran is supposed to be all the time. Give me more of this. Jay, what's your favorite case?
So I would have to say Beautiful World. Just the fact that we do not know what the outcome was and just the visceral sense of dread.
That's my easy second place because I'm a huge sucker for Lovecraftian cosmic horror.
It's Lovecraftian cosmic horror with a happy ending. That shouldn't be possible.
Exactly. And
sometimes not knowing is beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And
ignorance is bliss.
Yes.
Ignorance is bliss.
To quote Kyanchi?
Kyanchi.
Also love that one because it activates my almonds.
And who knows, maybe if he were to find out the truth, it would like literally break him.
Yeah, that he's been fucking a bear.
I mean,
or
I very strongly doubt it's a bear because the response from Okita is just like, this is not a bear. This is not a normal woodland creature.
Maybe Okita's really afraid of bears.
Nah, he's seeing a fifth dimensional space squid, and being inside her causes his penis to split across the timeline.
Whew,
Vivid.
That's a take.
Vivid.
Editing Sam in the future. Do what you want with that.
It's staying in. Jacob, what's your favorite case?
Hands down, easy, 100%. It was the Mafia one. It is not indicative to the normal, like, Franken Fran, and I was going to shout out a bunch of other cases, including the ones already mentioned. There's a lot of them. Like, honestly, the only one I was not particularly happy with was the second one. And, we've already discussed, that to a fair degree. So it's like I was going to shout it out, but then I realized I'm going down the list and like I'd want to shout out this and this and that. Like I loved a lot of them, but man, the one that like, it's so funny.
It's so funny. And it ends on Fran just being so wrong. And like, it's so funny because of that. Like,
it's like, it's so much the case where like, as I was reading it, like this was like, even a lot of the dark stuff was relatively funny. I'm going through this and I'm enjoying it just fine. This was the first point and the point where I just strongest bust a gut laughing uncontrollably. And then the thing that sealed it for me is I was going to go on a pedantic rant about how the angel fossil was clearly fake. And then they say that the angel fossil was fake and that the manga was in on the joke there too. And I'm like, this is flawless, man. I don't care what you say.
It activated your almonds.
It activated all my almonds.
Just saying, ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss.
She'd already bought the fossil at that point.
You can make a argument that doesn't require a lot of effort to support that ignorance is bliss is a major theme of this manga.
Yes.
It really is, isn't it?
All right. Hey, Matt, what's your favorite case?
So I mean, the ones everyone else have named have just been really good cases, and I would argue they're actually better than the one I'm going to pick. I really loved Unhappy Birthday, just because it hits the parody so well of like a case closed setup for everything, and then just rips away that so Fran can be super smart, and then also has that like bit at the end where it's just, by the way, I've reanimated the murder victim. Problem solved. Just it's equal amounts disturbing with a like, I've fed you my daughter, and like, but also just funny because it keeps hitting the beats so well.
Yeah, because we don't know. She's just indefinitely reanimated, or
probably.
Just,
no reason to think she isn't. Like, Fran does it pretty quick.
Yeah.
The only time Fran says she has trouble reanimating people is in the first chapter. And in all fairness, in the author's notes, we get the thing that was a pilot. So I don't think you should take what Fran says about reanimation too seriously, because I think that's changed from the pilot to the main series. So
well, there's also the case. The thing that she says was so hard about it is that he wanted died a while ago.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the other cases where she, sidesteps that reanimating is hard bit is because someone either died recently or was put on ice immediately.
It's like someone died in the last 15 minutes. Okay, that I can work with.
Or she's been in the freezer this entire time. So fair.
Exactly.
And then if I'm just going to pick one to be funny, I really, really like the bonus chapter with the kid who says, use those jaws and gobble me up.
That is pretty tough here.
I don't think anyone can really comprehend how much I love that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that that monster probably had to take a very long, cold shower after that.
I'm just saying,
needed to brush your teeth for a long time.
That comic has given me the new survival strategy if I ever arrive in a horror movie, is what if I just really come on to the monster chasing me? It might work.
I'm just saying, not related. That is totally my strategy whenever I go into haunted houses, and it works fabulously.
Is to come on to the performer?
Yep.
Okay.
They're trying to like freak you out and scare you, and it just like they're just taken off guard, and they're like, well, this is awkward.
Well,
you know what? You know what? I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the OverMangaCast. I hope you're enjoying Spooky Month so far. So make sure to follow us on all of the social medias, where we are at OverMangaCast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Use those to interact with us and tell us our opinions are bad and that your opinions are correct.
Yell at me for not liking Kobene on YouTube.
Exactly. YouTube is a great place to interact with us. We read every comment on the YouTube videos. They're a bit behind in the release schedule as the podcast ones, but hey.
Yep. And also, if you want to review episodes that as they come out, Podchaser allows you to do individual episodes as well as full series. And also, we really appreciate those. Get a nice star ranking for us. And if you have... it's not iTunes anymore. It hasn't been iTunes for years. If you use Apple Podcast, you can review us on that as well.
Next week, we don't have anything in particular to look forward to. It's not something to get really excited about and really hyped about, because everything is fine.
Yep. We will be reading the webtoon, Everything is Fine. So, there is literally no excuse for you guys not to read along with us. It's available free on the internet, except we are reading chapters or episodes 1 through 29, which brings us to the end of part 1 of that series. And if you're looking right now, dear listener, you might go, wait, hold on, episode 29 isn't out yet. We bought the fast pass so that we can read it, but you won't need to, because the last chapter comes out October 17th, and next episode is due out October 21st. So read to the end, get to the end of part 1, and we will all talk about it together next week.
These are the links we go to bring you top quality content. We actually pay for things on the internet. I know, it's weird. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.